Be cool, be kind, be classy. The cupcakes so sweet and sexy. Have fun and enjoy the journey. Just have a good attorney. No big whoop, no biggie. She lives near New York City. Not just a YouTube show. When you know, you better grab a straw. Learn about the law. It's cool here in the shade, sipping motions of lemonade. Cool heads will prevail, kindness will never fail. Be classy and vastly wise. Oh, Melanie Little is going live. Oh no, where is Melanie? Follow the island's melody. Is a concert within reach. No surprise, she's at Jones Beach. She heard some music far away. Captain Jack Stack Harbor Bay. He sings and his piano plays. Not all sounds are waterways. Speaking Yiddish or Latin, it's not just for Manhattan. It's for Goethe and Machegas. Ridiculous that insanus. Oy vey, Marcus. Proset, that's for schmucks. Be cool, be kind, be classy. My cupcakes sweet and sassy. Not just a YouTube show. When you know. Cool heads will prevail. Kindness will never fail. Be classy and vastly wise. Melanie Little is going live.
Hello. Hello, my friends. Good afternoon. Happy July. Happy July, everyone. Today's July 1st, 2025, and it's hot, hazy, and humid here in New York. What's it like for you? It's gross outside. It's gross. How's everybody doing? We're going back to Norfolk County. It's just the county that keeps on giving. County that keeps on giving. This is the Brian Walsh case. It's not pretty. Same players, different case. Shenanigans, tomfoolery, and ballyhoo that could lead to the charges against Brian Walsh being a lot less strong than we thought that they were based on his Google searches and everything else. So many of you joined me yesterday, and that was awesome. For those of you who did not join me yesterday, there's a link below in the show notes for the playlist on this case. Yesterday was the third, I think the third video we've done on the Brian Walsh case. And we're going to continue that hearing today. And today you can look forward to the remaining testimony of YURIY Bukhenik. Fanning also testifies, and Guarino, remember Guarino? Same players, different case, similar shenanigans, but this time the judge might not have any of it. It came to my attention also as I was doing some more research on this case. The judge who's now handling the case, her name is Diane Freniere. So far, we like her. She sits in Middlesex County. So far, these hearings that we see when we saw the 1970s type courtroom that we were talking about yesterday, that's in Middlesex County. I don't know why it's there, because this is a Norfolk County case. So I'm imagining that the trial's going to move back to Norfolk County. Does anybody know? Where is Middlesex County Courthouse? I have no idea how far away it is. But they took the case away from Judge Cannone. The first video that I did on this case was with Judge Cannone in the courtroom. Do you guys remember that? It was a long time ago. It was like 8 months ago. I'd love to have Michael Easter on my show. I don't know how to reach him. I don't really want to steal him from another channel. So I know that he's been doing a lot of appearances on another channel. But, if anybody puts him in touch with me, I'd be happy to talk to him. Oh, California loves me. I love California. Not as much as I love California. Thank you, Karen Reed is innocent. It's in Woburn. Okay, so how far is Woburn from Norfolk? I mean, I could, Google it, but you guys are local, so you can tell me. You can tell me where it is. I know. 30 minutes north of Dedham. Okay, so I guess it's not that far for the attorneys to go there, and they have to ship Brian Walsh over from, I think he's in the Norfolk County Pokey, so they have to, bring him over from whatever jail he's at. So I guess it's no big whoop. I guess that's where the judge's courtroom is so far right now. Woburn, come on. Is it really Woburn? It's Woburn. I mean, look, I know Long Island names are bad because I can give you a list of towns and ask you to pronounce them, like Hauppauge, Cutchogue, Massapequa. Woburn? Woburn or Woburn? 45 minutes away from Cohasset. But Cohasset is Norfolk County, yeah? Woburn. Oh boy. Woo woo. Thank you, Patriotic, for coming in. Hopefully you had your family group text going this morning to get everybody in here. Crazy. It's crazy. Let's catch up a little bit on this. Oh. Mass Dad is all over it. He's like, here's Michael Leeser's contact information. Thank you, Mass Dad. Amazing paralegal from Massachusetts, who like is so on top of it. You don't even know. See if I can find a short video to show you for those of you who are not familiar. Well, here's a short video from WCVB. This is when this is what happened right after this hearing was held. I think. Let's see when did this pop up? This is actually from December of 2024, but it's going to give you a little tiny. Maybe it'll at least give us a picture of Ana because we need to, this needs to be a little bit more about the victim than the as such Brian Walsh. And quite frankly, I don't know if he's guilty or not, but what I do know is that the shenanigans that were pulled by Bukhenik and Fanning and all the usual suspects may cause the evidence against him to be thrown out. And wouldn't that be horrific? Because, there's a constitution that the rest of the country follows. Massachusetts doesn't always follow the constitution, but illegal search and seizure is a thing. Fruits of the poisonous tree are a thing. I also have the papers that were filed after the hearing that we're going to watch. And there's some interesting arguments there that you better hope you never get arrested in Norfolk County if this is the way they're going to go on this. Okay, let's watch this guy. This guy, David Bukhenik from WCVB Channel 5. This is from December. That's the only the closest update I can find for you in local news because nobody's covering this.
Yes, Judge Diane Freniere was appointed to this case just 3 weeks ago, and she said during the hearing this afternoon that she doesn't want to rush either side, but she made clear repeatedly that this case will go to trial sometime in 2025. Now, it's already been nearly 2 years since Ana Walshe disappeared, the mother of 3 from Cohasset. Her body...
Gorgeous, right? Ana Walshe is gorgeous. Tell me you don't think they were looking for nudes on the phones. Proctor
has never been found. Authorities have accused her husband...
Let me take that back. Her body's never been found. Hold on.
The mother of 3 from Cohasset, her body has never been found. Authorities have accused her husband, Brian, of dismembering his wife and disposing of her remains. He is charged with murder. Now, Walsh's attorneys are asking for emails and text messages from the lead investigator on the case, Trooper Michael Proctor. That name may be familiar because Proctor was also the lead investigator on the Karen Reed murder case, and he wrote insulting messages about Reed. Now, Walsh's attorneys want to see if Proctor wrote any similar messages about him. Today, the judge set several hearing dates and a trial date now of October 20th, 2025. The prosecutor told the judge that he expects once that trial begins, it will last approximately 4 weeks. Live in Dedham, David Bukhenik, WCVB News Center 5.
So that's it. So that is trial's going to be starting October 20th. There will be another hearing on the motion to dismiss on July 24th, which we will absolutely cover. The motion to dismiss has been totally impounded. We can't even get a hold of it. Can't even see it because there's probably so much stuff about Proctor in there that they don't want the world to see. Are you shocked? Hi, Jules. So my mom's in Boston staying away from Canton. Good idea. Attorney wannabe. Thanks for your 10. Hey, Mel. Walsh was a frequent guest at my restaurant in 2019 where we had reproduction Warhol art. Later, he was arrested for selling fakes and passing it off as real. Right. And at the time that his wife went missing, he was on house arrest with an ankle monitor on those federal charges of fraud. And he was eventually convicted. And I think he was sentenced to something like only 37 months Oh, so that's a great question. So is he being held in federal prison right now, or is he being on that charge? Or is he being held in the Norfolk County Jail? That's interesting. Didn't think about that. Thank you, Attorney Wannabe. Yeah, he was apparently selling fake Andy Warhol paintings on eBay. Because, you know, everybody goes to eBay to buy their fine art, right? Can you believe it? Diamond in the rough. Supposedly, he disposed of her body at a refuse site that goes straight to an incinerator. The other items were found at a recycling facility. That is true. We've been over all the initial papers and the court documents and the police reports that we could find. And Proctor was the lead investigator. Here's the problem. We're going to read some more papers. And the papers will probably explain it to you better than I can. Here's the thing. Brian Walsh consented to have his phone searched. It was done on consent. YURIY Bukhenik did not have him sign a consent form. Remember how Jennifer McCabe made a big deal in the Karen Reed case about signing that consent form because she willingly turned over her phone? There was also a writing. There was also an agreement in writing between Brian Walsh's attorney and Lynn Beland, who was Michael Marcy's right-hand woman in the Norfolk County DA's office, that said the only thing that they're consenting to with regard to the phone are the communications between Ana Walshe and Brian Walsh between Christmas of 2022 and the day that she went missing, which was New Year's Day. Nothing before, nothing after the seizure. And what had happened was, even though that was in writing, the Massachusetts State Police, i.e. Trooper Fanning, Bukhenik, and Guarino, did a total extraction of Brian Walsh's phone to include his location data, his Google searches. That wasn't part of the scope of the consent. And that's a big problem. Because what had happened was Proctor, being the genius that he is, and we have a new picture for Proctor to put in the corner because that's what he looks like now. In his applications for search warrants to search the home, the car, and other search warrants, he put the evidence that he found in the phone with respect to location data and Google searches. And if all of that information was obtained illegally, the fruits of the poisonous tree can be suppressed and not allowed into court. And that's the evidence that they have against Brian Walsh. The location data that they got illegally, in my opinion, from his phone is what led him to all of those dumpsters. And if that comes out and it's found that without that, there's no probable cause for the other search warrants, everything that flows from that is out. That's the problem. Because yes, they have video, I think, of him putting things in dumpsters, unless I'm conflating this with the Fotis Dulos case, which could be possible. But I think, isn't there video of him? Maybe there's no video of him putting things in the dumpsters, but there's location data putting him at the dumpsters at certain times from his phone that was illegally searched because they couldn't do the old-fashioned detective work and get an actual warrant to search the phone. It's wild. And then because of his location data, they found that he went to Home Goods and Home Depot, and they have him on video buying some things and stuff that may lead you to believe that he did dispose of his wife. But again, if the location data was obtained illegally, none of that stuff will come in. And that's a major problem. Will there be justice for Ana Walshe? Let's go back to the hearing. And get back to YURIY Bukhenik on cross. Yeah, exactly. Integrity and honor at its finest in Norfolk County. That's right, Danita 316. You know it. And right, Pure Duckery says, how many other people have they done this to? Yeah, ask Whiffen what he thinks. 100%. All right, let's get back to YURIY Bukhenik. He's got a completely different demeanor in this hearing. than he did in front of Judge Cannone with Hank Brennan. It's interesting. If you're ever confused about what's happening here, it's scrolling along the bottom of your screen. Richard Johnson says, if the evidence gathered from the fruit of the poisonous tree, what else would they then have? That's a great point. We're going to look at the papers and you'll see what the arguments are by defense counsel. Defendant's attorney is Larry Tipton. We watched Larry Tipton try the Penny McGee case, which was a bench trial in front of Judge Cannone. He's an excellent attorney, He's no joke. He's a public defender for Brian Walsh in this case, but he's top notch. So here's where we left off yesterday with YURIY. If you didn't watch yesterday's show, you can go back and catch up on that later. Let me just see where exactly we were on this.
That's all I have, Judge. Thank you.
All right, so that was the end of the cross. So let's just go back. Let's go back a little bit so you guys can get a little flavor of him on cross. And look at how he's clenching his hands in front of him. Remember one of the jurors from the Karen Reed case, I think it was Paula, said that she could see him clenching his fists and she just thought that was so weird. This is the defendant, Brian Walsh. Come to your screen if you are able to do so safely and you're not on scaffolding or driving an 18-wheeler on a highway. I see you. This is Brian Walsh. I think that he got a better barber than poor Harry Turk did. The court audio should be fine. It was fine yesterday, so you can always boost it on your end if you need to.
What consent was given? It was given.
Hold on.
Side of the statement.
We also learned that YURIY Bukhenik, despite having no training, questioned Brian and Ana Walsh's 6-year-old son. Yeah, people say he doesn't have a friendly relationship with this judge, and that's exactly true, I believe. We're just going to take it back a couple of questions.
Thank you, sir.
I got you.
I like the judge too. Her name is Diane Freniere. There's also extensive show notes with a summary of the case below the video. You may have to close out your chat to get to it. No. It has nothing to do with the 6-year-old giving him consent. No. Let me see if I can. How many of you guys were not here yesterday? Maybe I'll take it back to the beginning of cross. Give me 1 second. It's worth watching if you haven't seen it. Hold, please. $458.20.
Attorney Miner. Which what did you? So
1 minute.
Yes, there is.
And same time with the other.
Okay. This case is being handled by Greg Connor. He's an ADA with Norfolk County District Attorney's Office, and Laura McLaughlin right here in the white jacket, also in on this case. To the right of your screen, this is defense attorney Larry Tipton, and to his right is the defendant, Brian Walsh. This is the end of direct, moving into cross with Larry Tipton. So here you go.
On direct examination, you described your interaction with Diane Walshe.
Yes, sir.
And so you were involved in interviewing Diana Walshe along with the 6-year-old son.
At portions of it, yes.
Okay, Diana Walsh is Brian Walsh's mother, the grandmother of the 6-year-old child.
When you say portions of it, what portions?
The 6-year-old was not present during the entire interview with Diana.
But you were present for the entire interview with Diana Walshe.
I was.
You didn't have any involvement in the interview of Mr. Walsh on January 4th.
No, not the official interview. I just introduced myself and met him. Brief communication verbally, not a formal interview.
Did you arrive at the home at the same time with the other officers who eventually did conduct an interview with Mr. Walsh on January 5th?
If I'm not mistaken, we all arrived together. Yes, sir.
So you were sitting, is it fair to say that during these two different interviews, you were in different rooms?
Yes, we were separated. The two rooms are separated by the stairwell or staircase and a wall, I believe, in the home. That's right in the middle of the building. But there's a open space for the front and the rear through the kitchen.
It's fair to say then that there were times during these interviews that you could hear people asking Mr. Walsh questions, correct?
To be accurate, because we were having our own conversation, I merely heard voices. I could not hear the specifics of their conversation or who was speaking.
And it's entirely accurate, isn't it, to say that the entire time that you talked to Diane Walsh, that Mr. Walsh, Mr. Brian Walsh, he was never present for any of that, correct?
With our conversation, sir? No, he was not.
So when you were asked all these questions on direct examination, and you were describing the behaviors of Diane Walsh as you interpreted them, it's fair to say that Mr. Walsh had nothing to do with any of those behaviors of Diane Walsh that you were observing.
Are you asking if he was influencing her behavior?
Yeah.
I could not suggest that, no.
And I mean, she is the grandmother of this the 6-year-old that you were also talking to, right?
That's my understanding, yes, sir.
And this 6-year-old was telling you, in his own words, what he remembered about seeing his mother, correct?
Yes, the information of his recollection was in his own words.
And when you were asked questions on direct examination about the iPad and fixing it, you used the word manipulation, right?
That is a term I use, yes.
Okay. You don't have any specific knowledge about what you characterized as the manipulation of the iPad.
The knowledge I have is that I was told she fixed the device for him. Diana said that the button was broken. Those types of manipulations of the device, in my training experience, would be logged within the database on the device.
But based on that information that you just told the court, when Diane Walsh mentioned a button, what button was it?
She didn't specify.
Okay. And it's fair to say that you didn't make any effort to see if the button was now working or whatever button she was referring to was working, correct?
Correct. I did not see, no.
So you really don't.
Just to catch some people up who may not know what he's talking about. Thank you, Living That GP Life, for gifting 5 memberships. You're amazing. Totally generous. And welcome to the 5 new members. The 6-year-old child, Ana and Brian Walshe, at the time, their children were 2, 4, and 6. Ana Walshe, last time she was seen by someone outside the family was New Year's Eve, 2022. And the 6-year-old, when questioned by YURIY Bukhenik, told him that he saw his mom around between 6 and 7 a.m. and she was on the couch in her pajamas, and he came downstairs and he had a problem with his iPad, and she fixed his iPad, and then she went upstairs and she changed into clothes, and then she had a suitcase with her. He said a 2-foot-long duffel bag. He's 6 years old. And she said, my taxi or my cab is outside, and she left. She was allegedly going to get on a plane to go to DC. She had another residence in DC, and she split her time between Cohasset and DC. And it came out later that she was also apparently having an affair with somebody in DC. And the 6-year-old child said that he saw her leave in her street clothes and that she said she was getting in her cab. Evidence shows so far that Brian Walshe did not leave his house until 2:30 that afternoon. He says he was in bed when she left. 2:30 in the afternoon when the nanny got there. So I have questions about what happened or when he would have done this if he didn't leave the house until 2:30 in the afternoon. And people think also that maybe the grandmother coached the son to say those things, but I don't know. It's kind of hard. 6 years old is really young. Can you really coach a kid what to say? I don't know. I have some questions. Because all of the Google searches that we looked at, and we're going to hear about them again when Guarino testifies, I believe, or Fanning, all those Google searches were made around before 6:30 a.m., which would have been before the time that the 6-year-old saw her leave the house to get into this cab. So yeah, no 6-year-old would describe a duffel bag being 2 feet long. So I have a lot of questions, and the fact that Proctor, Bukhenik, Guarino, and Fanning are involved gives me even more questions. So let's keep going.
Don't know, do you, at the time, that the iPad was in fact not working, or if it just didn't come on? You really don't know. You're just going on the fact that Diane Walshe said something about a button wasn't working.
It was the child's information that he passed along to us, and what Diana shared as well.
And the only question that you testified to, that you asked Diana Walshe, that you asked the 6-year-old, was something to the effect, do you know where your mother is, or do you know where your mother went? That was when Diane Walshe interjected and made a comment, correct?
That specific question, she interrupted my full question, so I could not ask the full question. The question was interrupted.
Now, it's fair to say that you haven't been trained in interviewing young juvenile children, correct?
I don't have specific training for young juvenile children, but I am trained in interviews and interrogations.
Right, but you would agree that there are people that are trained specifically to interview young children, correct?
I am aware that there are specialists that conduct SANE interviews.
And you are aware of the fact that eventually on January 5th, there was an agreement to have the young child, the 6-year-old, interviewed by a trained specialist, correct?
I'm not certain of the date when the agreement happened, but I am aware that there was an agreement to do something like that along those lines.
And that would be done by someone in Norfolk, correct? In fact, I think the office that they use is in Norfolk, correct? Do you know that?
I am not aware of the location outside of Foxborough, but I could be wrong.
And you would agree, wouldn't you, that in your experience, it's not unusual, is it, for a parent or a grandparent to protect their child or grandchild from certain questions that they think may upset them?
No, I wouldn't say that it's unusual that a child or a parent or a grandparent would do something like that. No.
All right.
So the interview was on January 5th. Ana wasn't reported missing until January 4th, and she was reported missing by a coworker who called, I think, Cohasset PD. And Brian Walsh said, well, I didn't report her missing because it's not uncommon for her to not be in touch with me every single day. He had been texting her and trying to get a hold of her, but she wasn't responding. And he said, because the last time that I did that, she got really mad at me because I called her job when she wasn't responding to me. And she said, don't ever do that again. So he didn't do that again. And so the child was interviewed on the 5th of January. She had just been reported missing on the 4th. And the last time that the child saw her was on the 1st. So it wasn't like this was 6 months later. It was only a couple of days later.
I understand your direct examination and some of your questions, and please correct me if I'm wrong. You did or you did not have any conversation with Assistant District Attorney Lynn Beland regarding any supposed agreement?
I don't have a memory of talking to Lynn Beland on the phone about the agreement.
Of course he doesn't. Frinn. Is she really trying to back Walsh? When you say she, you mean me? When you say she, who's she? The cat's mother? I don't know what Walsh did or didn't do. What I know is that these guys screwed up the investigation so badly again that he may actually go free. So when you come into my chat and say, is she really trying? Are you talking about me? I'm just curious. I came into this thinking he was 100% guilty. And now I'm coming into this thinking these guys are pulling their same old shenanigans. And who knows? I'm saying a guilty person could walk free because of what these guys did with their search warrants, because they can't do an investigation the right way. And that's really funny because they did call him Sergeant Puke yesterday, P-U-K, on closed captions. Puke.
You've been asked by the Commonwealth in this case to search your records, your emails, whatever, for any such evidence of communicating with Assistant District Attorney Lynn Beland regarding this agreement, correct?
I have been asked, yes.
And you conducted that search and you found nothing?
Conversations over the phone. I don't have a conversation over the phone specifically in reference to the agreement.
So
but the email is produced. I'm CC'd on it.
Right, but you don't know about the content of any conversation between Assistant District Attorney Lynn Beland and Attorney Tracy Miner regarding that agreement.
I do not know that, no.
And it's fair to say that you never attempted to contact Lynn Beland to make sure that you understood what the parameters were of any agreement, did you?
I did not contact Lynn Beland. The email spoke for itself.
Yeah, but he misconstrued it.
You've testified here today that, for instance, you just answered a question on direct examination, that the iPad had no limitations put on, like the search of the iPhone, correct?
Objection, I don't think you said that.
Rephrase the question.
Were there any limitations put on any search of the iPad?
The search limitations were included in the email, and it referenced all devices that we were going to get on consent.
Now, you've also told us that your discussions with Attorney Tracy Miner involved discussing and seizing cell phones, correct?
Yes, there were 2 cell phones, as I mentioned prior, and the iPad that we were aware of.
And regarding the 2 cell phones, we can all agree that one of them was purportedly Mr. Walsh's personal cell phone, and the other cell phone was the one in the Volvo that was attributed to the young 6-year-old, correct?
Yes, sir.
There is no reference in the email that you've referred to today to a second cell phone, is there?
Nope.
I'd have to take a look at the email, but my understanding through our communications, myself and Tracy Miner, were for 2 cell phones and the 6-year-old's iPad.
Well, I understand that's your memory. I'm asking you
False
that
memory.
with regards to the email that's been introduced into evidence, there's no reference to a second cell phone, is there?
No. It was just Brian Walsh's cell phone that they were supposed to collect on consent. But they took the iPad and another cell phone. And wait until, is he going to ask for a dictionary? Remember, this was right around the time he testified in the Karen Reed trial. Recently. I know the footage looks like it's from 1972, but hi, Big Hoss. Good morning. Good afternoon.
Yes, based on my reviewing of that email content, there's no reference of a second phone.
It's getting a little hot under the collar. Thank you, What the Duck, for gifting 5 memberships. You're amazing.
And there's no reference to anything other than Brian Walsh's cell phone in that email.
I'm sorry,
No.
can you repeat the question again, please?
There's no reference to any other cell phone other than Brian Walsh's cell phone in that email agreement.
No.
It talks about the 6-year-old's iPad.
Right, but there's no reference to a second cell phone or any other cell phone in that email agreement.
That is correct.
And in fact, there's certainly nothing about all of the minor children's cell phones.
That's correct.
There's reference in that email to one iPad, correct?
Yes.
And there's no reference to more than one iPad in that email, is there?
Just the 6-year-old's iPad.
But then Fanning is the one who goes and collects the devices, and then they all have plausible deniability. Because YURIY misunderstood the email and he didn't talk to Fanning, and then Fanning went there and just took what he wanted. This is how they operate. This is how they've been operating for decades, in my opinion. They've never been called out on it. The world has never been watching, and this is going to be a big problem for Norfolk County and maybe Massachusetts as a whole, in my opinion.
Sergeant, it's fair to say that you wrote a report where you were discussing this agreement?
Yes, it is. Yes.
You wrote a report.
Did you review that report before you testified here today on direct examination?
I did review it, yes.
And it's fair to say that in that report, you make reference to an agreement that encompassed, quote, his cell phones in regard to Brian Walsh. And you use those cell phones, plural, correct? In your report.
I believe that's right, if you're not mistaken.
You have that report with you?
I don't have it here with me, no.
And if you need to refresh your memory, just tell us. But you also in that report make specific reference to the agreement encompassed his minor children's, plural, cell phones, correct?
I'd have to take a look at the report, sir.
That's right.
Good. Give it to him.
May I approach you?
Yes.
This judge does not insert herself in the proceedings, but every now and then we remember that she's there because she asks a question or she wants to clarify something. She's on it. And she knows the case, which is so
Thank you, sir.
refreshing.
I'd ask you to repeat that.
I know it's something my mother used to say too. Who's she? The cat's mother? I have no idea where they came from, but a lot of you have heard it before. I thought I was kind of like going to say something that nobody would catch a reference about, but May DJK says, my Nana always taught me, never say she, you're referring to a cat's mom. I know, where does that even come from? Look at, he's closely examining his own report, which any witness would review before they got on the stand, but not YURIY.
Yes, it does.
To refresh your memory that, in fact, you make reference to cell phones plural when it comes to Mr. Walsh's cell phone.
Yes, it does.
Does it refresh your memory that, in fact, you made reference to all the children's cell phones?
Yes.
Does it refresh your memory that it referred to the children's iPads?
Yes.
Is it also fair to say that at the end of that report, you make specific reference that, quote, the agreement is attached to this report?
Mhm.
Yes, sir.
And the agreement we're talking about is what's already been introduced in evidence, correct?
That is correct, sir.
It's fair to say that that agreement that was introduced in evidence does not refer to multiple cell phones, multiple iPads, correct?
That is correct, sir.
And in fact, you said on direct examination that you had some conversation with Fanning, and Fanning then arranged to pick up the devices, correct?
That's correct.
Are you aware of the fact that Fanning has written a report about what he went to pick up?
I am not aware now.
Really?
Did you talk to Fanning about what he had gone to pick up and what in fact he did pick up?
No, I never spoke to exactly what he picked up.
Really?
So you don't know that when Fanning...
Because Fanning and Bukhenik don't talk to each other. Do you believe that? One hand doesn't know what the other hand is doing? Do you believe that? He's looking down at his report, Kathy. Notice how he doesn't look at his watch the whole entire time here, like he did when he was testifying in the Karen retrial. Plausible deniability. I'll make the agreement with Brian Walsh's attorney about what we're going to search, and then I'll write a report that says we're going to search all kinds of different stuff, and then you go pick up, all kinds of other stuff, and then we can have plausible deniability because we didn't speak to each other.
Went to Mr. Walsh's house to pick up the devices pursuant to the agreement. He only knew to pick up one cell phone and one item, correct? Or you don't know?
I don't know what he actually picked up. I communicated 2 cell phones and an iPad.
And my question is, though, that you apparently don't know that based on the conversation he had with you at the command post, that he thought he was only supposed to pick up one cell phone and one iPad. You don't know that, do you?
I never questioned Lieutenant Fanning on what he picked up.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
Tommy says, how come he isn't acting like a punk in this trial? Well, it's not a trial yet. This is just a hearing because this judge actually believes in evidentiary hearings, but also not a lot of friendlies in the courtroom. Remember all the friendlies that were in the courtroom during the Karen Reed trial? This is a motion to suppress hearing, an evidentiary hearing, because unlike Judge Cannone, who would just scribble scrabble on the motion denied with the date in her name signed without a hearing. This judge believes there should be a hearing about this. And they're calling witnesses. And this was either May 20th or June 18th. It wasn't broadcast live, and it was during the Karen Reed trial, so we're covering it now.
Exhibit 22.
Proctor's not going to testify. They've said they're not going to call him at the trial either in
In
October.
that report that now is Exhibit 22, you specifically say the agreement was put into writing by Norfolk District Attorney's First Assistant Lynn Beland, correct?
Yes, I do.
The agreement, you're referring to the email that's been introduced into evidence, correct?
That is correct.
It wasn't me, kindergarten cop. It's like the Shaggy defense. It wasn't me. It wasn't me.
There's
Oh, wow.
nothing in the agreement that uses the phrase marital privilege. is there?
No, sir.
There's nothing in your conversations that you put in your report that was to document this agreement. There's no reference to marital privilege, is there?
I'm sorry. There was two things you asked about. There was no mention of marital privilege outside of the statement about excluding communications between Ana and Brian Walsh.
And the phrase marital privilege does not appear in your report that's been introduced as Exhibit 22.
No.
And it doesn't appear in the, quote, agreement email that's been introduced today.
That statement does not appear now.
And the only thing that is referenced, the only subject matter that's referenced in the email agreement is, quote, communications.
That's the only subject matter that needed to be carved out of the full extraction.
That wasn't my question. My question was the only subject matter that is referenced in the agreement is communications.
Yes, sir.
He's kind of like a resting frowny face. Look at how his mouth just turns down naturally. It's like a total frowny face. It's like a frown face emoji. Look, resting frowny face. Just for the record, Little Cupcake says this testimony is happening the same day the jury eventually came back with a not guilty verdict for Karen Reed. YURIY had a lot on his mind that day. For the record, I'm not sure if this testimony, because Law and Crime put it all together in one video, was from the hearing of May 20th or the hearing of June 18th. I'm not exactly sure. Considering that Laura McLaughlin is in the courtroom, it makes me think that this is May, but I'm not sure. And I don't know what he was wearing in the courthouse on the day of the verdict in Karen Reed. So that could be true, but it could also be May.
Sergeant, do you know when Mr. Walsh first talked to Tracy Miner, his attorney, about the request to search his phone?
I have no idea.
He did. Julia says he wore this suit on the day of Karen's verdict.
Do you know,
Could be.
Sergeant Bukhenik, when Tracy Miner, Attorney Tracy Miner, and Assistant District Attorney Lynn Beland first began discussing the request to search Mr. Walsh's phone?
I would strictly be speculating when they first began. My only knowledge is to the email being sent from Lynn.
Lynn. He calls her Lynn. It's not Ms. Beland or Attorney Beland. It's just Lynn. Get a feeling they've got a pretty close relationship, him and Lynn. Other people say he was wearing a dark suit on verdict day, so I can't be quite sure.
Now you,
Take that, listen to that again.
Email being sent from Lynn.
have you talked to Assistant District Attorney, now retired, Lynn Beland,
She's now retired.
regarding this agreement prior to this hearing?
I have no memory of talking to her about this agreement.
So the government, the Commonwealth, has not asked you to go talk to retired Assistant District Attorney Lynn Beland and say, what did you and Attorney Tracy Miner agree to? You haven't been asked to do that.
No, sir.
Now, it's fair to say that there are consent to search forms used routinely by the Mass State Police, correct?
Yes, sir.
And those consent to search forms, they require information to be entered on the form that includes the person giving consent and the officer taking the consent, correct?
Yes, it is.
And they also include an area where you describe what is going to be searched, correct?
There's detailed explanation on the forms, yes.
And it's signed and dated by the person giving consent and a witness, correct?
Yes, sir.
And the reason for this is to make sure that people understand what this consent was, what consent was given, that it was given voluntarily, and what the parameters of any consent were, correct?
That is the purpose behind us reading those consent forms to the individuals we're getting the consent from.
Mm-hmm.
And you didn't use one in this case.
No,
No, sir.
no consent
And
form.
it's fair to say that you certainly had an opportunity to use one because you were at the home on January 5th, 2023, prior to any consent being given and any agreement being made, correct?
I was at the home at that point. I did not ask for consent on the 5th.
But yeah, moving on.
See how he spins the question? Does this a lot.
I'm going to show you a document, and it's not from this case. But is it fair to say that that is an accurate representation of the consent to search form that's used by the Mass State Police?
Although it does appear as a form that's generated by the state police, that's not the form we use. So I can't represent that this is what we would have used.
What is different? What is different from that form you're looking at now and the form that you say would be used by the
Well, there's a lot of different characteristics of the form itself, just the way it appears, the way it's presented, the bottom portion as well. It's just slightly different.
Can I ask you then, Sergeant Lieutenant, is it fair to say that that form, substantive, whatever form you're referring to, the consent to search form, would have included exactly what that form's asking for? Name of the person giving consent, a witness to sign on it, informing the person of their right to refuse consent, but also listing what and describing what is to be searched.
I would agree with you, yes.
So, with that caveat, I would move to introduce.
Your Honor, I object. If the council wants, I'm happy to get a copy of their form they generated.
Why don't we do that? Have the form that they actually might be using now as opposed to that form. There's no dispute with regard to the contents of the form. He didn't fight you on that. He agrees with you. It's in evidence. You don't need the form that he's not familiar with.
And I'll get a blank one and we'll stipulate to it as an exhibit.
That sounds terrific.
I did ask for what I didn't
Mm-hmm.
You didn't ask for, you asked for what, on what?
consent to search.
Oh, previously?
I apologize to counsel. I have no memory of asking for it. I will make sure that.
We can reach agreement on this, I'm sure.
Really doesn't matter because he didn't have Brian Walsh sign a consent form anyway. But of course, Yuri's going to say that's not the form we use. And then Greg Connor, I don't know much about him at all. He's no Hank Brennan, that's for sure. He's no Adam Lally either. Says we'll give you the actual form that they do use and we'll stipulate it into evidence, and that's fine because it's the judge who's going to decide this. This is a motions hearing about whether or not all of this stuff is going to be suppressed. There's Brian Walsh. If you haven't gotten a look at him yet, there he is. He had a better hair, better barber in the Norfolk County Pokey than Harry
With
Turk had.
regards to
For sure.
the agreement, there's nothing in the agreement email that has been produced as an exhibit that references anything about search histories, correct?
No, that specific term is not in
No.
the email.
And there's nothing in the email about location data, correct?
That's correct.
And once again, the only subject matter that's referenced in that email agreement is quote communication, correct?
Yes, as what to be excluded, yes.
Yeah, he's got to spin that too. All they had to do was get a proper search warrant, you guys. That's all they had to do was get a proper search warrant to search the phones or the phone. The only thing they did, the only thing that they were allowed to get were communications between Ana Walshe and Brian Walsh between Christmas and New Year's. That's it. Because they told him they were trying to find, if she was still a missing person at this point. She still is a missing person, technically, at this point. Her body's never been found. She also had dual citizenship between the US and Serbia. A lot of people think this is a very like a Gone Girl kind of case. For those of you who've seen the movie. And F and Hippie, I will always allow a quote from Bob Dylan. Mama, take this badge from me. I can't use it anymore. Name that tune. Good evening to the Netherlands, Matilda. But because they couldn't do it the right way, everything stemming from this could be suppressed. They got all of his location data. They got all of his search history. That's the Google searches. That's his whereabouts, all that stuff. It hasn't been ruled on yet. People are asking, knocking on heaven's door. That's right, Patriotic, you know.
Well, when you say what to be excluded, it's just, I don't want to beat a dead horse here, but this will be my last question on this particular subject. The email agreement makes reference to what communications will be limited, and it makes specific reference to certain attorney-client conversations, communications, and communications between Mr. Walsh and Ana Walsh, correct?
That is what to be limited during the search and analysis of the device's data.
Yeah.
It certainly doesn't say, does it? Anywhere in that agreement that the agreement is that everything that's downloaded can be reviewed and analyzed, correct? Doesn't say that.
Busted.
It does not specify that.
We just do what we
And it's
want.
important, isn't it? Just like that form that you were talking about a moment ago, it's important, isn't it, to be very specific in any written agreement as to what the terms of the agreement are, right?
It's important to understand what is being done. Our verbal communications mentioned phone extractions. That means all of the data on the phone. And what was to be limited based on our verbal communication, then subsequently put into email form, was the communications between client and attorney and Mr. and Mrs. Walsh.
But that's the way you're interpreting the content of this email that you did not write and did not respond to. That's fair, isn't it?
For the latter portion, yes, I did not write this email, nor did I respond to it. But the verbal agreement on the phone with Attorney Miner was that we were doing a full system data extraction on the devices provided that were
No.
consented to.
That's your,
No.
Yes, it is.
and your memory is that the agreement also included all of Mr. Walsh's cell phones, all of the children's cell phones, and all of the children's iPads.
No, my memory was that the devices I knew about was Mr. Walsh's cell phone that was missing, the children's cell phone that was in Mr. Walsh's vehicle, and the iPad reference to by the 6-year-old, which was fixed by Ana. That's why the communication with Tracy Miner was about 2 cell phones with the iPad thrown in on top of those 2 devices.
Just throw it in.
Sergeant Bukhenik, just on that particular answer and question. The second sentence in your report that you wrote that's dated January 6, 2023, you wrote specifically, during numerous phone conversations, we established a verbal agreement for the digital evidence extraction of devices belonging to and being used by Brian Walsh and his juvenile children to include Thomas Walsh, 6-year-old, Thomas Walsh's 6-year-old. Those include his cell phones and his minor children's cell phones and tablets. Correct?
If that's verbatim from my report, that is what's written.
So my question that I asked you just a moment ago was, your memory of the agreement, was it involved all of those devices, not just the 2 that we're talking about?
Oh, caught in another lie.
My conversation with Attorney Miner was for the 2 cell phones I knew existed and were referenced.
So why did you put all those other devices in your report that you wrote specifically about the agreement?
I don't understand.
Why did you refer to all of those devices in the one single report that you wrote and refer to it as the agreement? Why did you include all of the devices?
Because there was knowledge of other devices existing. So there was Diana's statement that she purchased cell phones for all the children.
Okay.
Do you see what he did? Do you see what he did? He wrote one report and he put all the devices in his report that they consented to search all the devices. When he just testified, no, they only consented to the kid's iPad, the kid's phone that was in the car, and Brian Walsh's phone. When in reality, all they agreed to, I think, was the kid's iPad and Brian's phone. Now he's given 3 different versions of his false memory and his story, and he writes something completely different in his report. Because again, this has been going on for decades. Nobody's ever called him out on it, and the world hasn't been watching. And remember, for his shenanigans in the Karen Reed case and the murder of John O'Keefe investigation, he got 5 days of vacation taken from him, from the however many hundreds of vacation days that he has banked. Wonder why Lynn Beland retired so she could get her pension? She left skid marks at the same time. David Traub, who was the spokesperson or the PR guy for Norfolk County DA's office, left. Think they saw the writing on the wall before the second Karen Reed trial and this trial coming up? Just a thought.
And iPads and AirTags, etc. So there were other electronic devices that could have come into play.
You would agree, wouldn't you, Sergeant Bukhenik, that there is some real ambiguity between what you stated as the content of the agreement in your report and that email that has been introduced into evidence?
I don't think it's ambiguous, no.
You don't think it's ambiguous between your testimony, your report, and what was actually agreed on in the email? We'll go, for those of you who weren't here yesterday, we're going to go back to the email that was agreed on between Brian's attorney.
Were you present at the home, Mr. Walsh's home, on January 6th of 2023?
KS Grammy says, my hubby just walked in and says, that guy looks like Popeye.
I don't remember. I don't remember going to the home. I might have been. I don't remember going to the home. I know I was at the command post. There was other missions I was conducting. I don't have a specific memory of being at the house, but if you have a specific question about maybe what transpired, I could give you an answer.
Do you know that there were numerous searches conducted to the house on January 6th?
I know that the CERT team and the dive team conducted searches around the home. I was not present for those searches. I was at the command post.
Thank you, Big Hoss. He does look like his job depends on this. Dever. I'm sorry, Marissa.
And you weren't there because you were in DC on January 7th.
That's correct. Early morning, January 7th, I left for DC.
Just so I'm following along, the date that you were using was 1/6.
Yes, from when searches were conducted.
Right, but he left on 1/7.
Right. He's
He
not.
could have been there, but he's at the outpost. I just want to make sure I'm trying to follow along with what the evidence is and that you're not missing up the dates. That's why I'm asking.
I could be messing up the dates. I'll be the
I
first
don't
to
know.
admit that.
I'll
But
let you go.
let me just say,
giving you the opportunity to correct it if I've got something wrong. But I've raised it.
The judge is actually paying attention and she actually knows the case. What a refreshing change in Norfolk County, although this courtroom is in Middlesex.
Maybe I'm the one that has it wrong.
When did you leave for DC on January 7th?
Early morning hours. I don't know the exact time of the flight. Could have been 8, 9 a.m. But I never responded to Cohasset. I went from my home.
Oh, yeah, this is where it started glitching
So
yesterday.
you were not at the home on January 7th.
No, sir, I was not.
And you're not sure if you were at the home on January 6th.
I do not have a specific memory of being there. I might have. Yeah.
But we can all agree you were there on January 5th.
Yes, sir.
Were you there on January 8th?
No, I was not.
I glitched right around this part yesterday. This is law and crimes issue, not ours. Emily C is here. Hi, Emily.
Did you negotiate, as you call it, the agreement? Did you negotiate the dates that are involved?
See, they don't even want us watching this. That's why they keep screwing up their feed.
The person wants us to exclude would be excluded. Brian Walsh was eager to help us find Ana. The same sentiment was felt by me from Tracy Miner. She was trying to help while conducting her responsibilities as a defense attorney. So that was my understanding based on our conversation.
But was it your understanding that regardless of the communications that are referenced in there, attorney-client communications and communications between Mr. Walsh and Ana Walshe, that in fact there was a temporal limit placed on any search of the devices? Can you
Rephrase that question, please? The temporal limit, I just want to make sure I understand correctly.
Do you need a dictionary?
That in fact there was a date of.
He understands temporal limit, but he doesn't understand theory because, it's his third language, English is. Skeeter, no, there was no consent signed about the device access. There was a written agreement via email between ADA Lynn Beland of Norfolk County DA's office and Tracy Miner, who was Brian Walsh's attorney on his federal charges for selling fake Andy Warhols on eBay. They had a written agreement via email, but no, they did not have Brian Walsh sign a consent form. As you know, is required when they take your phone. They did it with Karen Reed. They did it with Jennifer McCabe. Heather's budgeting says, to quote Proctor on the ABC interview, this is how we do every case. Right. And Proctor said, well, I wouldn't change a thing. I wouldn't change a thing. Thanks, Heather, for your 5.
12/25/2022, that the search parameter would begin, and there was an ending date of January 6, 2023 of the search parameter when the search would end. Are you aware of that?
I am aware of the date that we couldn't go back past, and that was the 25th. So we couldn't search for communications between client and attorney before the 25th, as well as Mr. and Mrs. Walsh's communications.
And I guess what I heard you say was that it wasn't you that suggested 12/25, correct?
Right. I wouldn't have a reason to pick a date.
Something funny?
That date, other than being Christmas, it made had no significance to me.
And it wasn't you who picked the date of January 6th, 2023.
I believe it was present. So the term used was present.
Cherie doesn't think Yuri's spin will work with this judge. Thanks, Cherie. Christine wants to know how he became a cop. This is the way they've always done it, Christine. They never get caught. No ramifications for the behavior. The world is watching now, though. We ain't got no quit. Thanks, Christine. Big Haas thinks that Yuri and Officer Dever would make a great couple. Thanks, Big Haas. 3-5. Toasty Bun 71 pointing out the video of him dancing with his shirt off is a real treat. Yeah.
You used the word documentation in the context of what Attorney Tracy Miner asked for. You remember that?
Yes.
And was it documentation regarding what the agreement was?
She just wanted to put in writing, so we needed to document what the specifics were.
And was it also documentation about what, in fact, searches were conducted and how they were conducted?
No, we didn't discuss the details of the searches. She just wanted specific things excluded from the analysis and the searching of the data from those devices. And that is what was documented by First Assistant Lynn Beland. And she agreed to it.
That's all I have, Judge. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Redirect.
Sergeant, what memory do you have of Attorney Miner mentioning marital privilege in your conversation?
No memory whatsoever.
The same that was mentioned, where does the district attorney's office and the state police do those forensic examinations of children?
To the best of my knowledge, at the NAC in Foxborough, if I'm not mistaken.
And do you have any certifications in cell phone analysis?
I do.
And what certifications do you have?
I have a Celebrate basic course.
Oh.
It's a week-long course with certification.
So when
He's certified in Celebrate. Because you know what? How much do you bet? And I've been screaming this since the beginning, since this case happened, because this case happened. Ana Walshe went missing in January of 2023. I didn't start covering Karen Reed until January 2024. And I've been saying since the beginning of covering Karen Reed that they're going to have a big problem in Brian Walsh, because you can't use Celebrate as a shield and a sword. You can't say, oh, 227 never happened in Karen Reed because Celebrate's inaccurate. But, you know, all those Google searches that Brian Walsh made, Celebrate's totally accurate. It's going to be a problem. He took a week-long course in Celebrate.
you say the term extraction, what significance does that have as far as celebrating your understanding?
It's a full file system download, basically a copy of what the device contains for data and information on it that's then transferred onto a processing computer with an exact copy. Then Celebrate parses out certain information that's either labeled or carved out if it has been deleted and no longer assigned a value that is of significance.
Did Attorney Miner request a consent form?
No, she did not.
Recross. The witness may step down.
Thank you, Ana.
Bye-bye, Yuri. Na, 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 na. Hey, hey, hey.
solemnly swear or affirm that testimony
Goodbye.
shall provide the matter now adhering to the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth.
Here
so
comes
help you God.
Trooper Fanning, everyone.
Thank you. Please have a seat. Just keep your voice up nice and loud. Okay.
And you may proceed.
Thank you, Your Honor. Sir, could you please state your name and spell your last name for the record?
Yes, good afternoon. Good afternoon. My name is Lieutenant John Fanning, Fanning.
And Lieutenant, where do you work?
I work for the Massachusetts State Police assigned to the Norfolk District Attorney's Office.
How long have you been with the Massachusetts State Police?
20 years next month,
And how long have you been assigned to the District Attorney's Office?
13 years.
And how long have you been a lieutenant?
Since December of 21.
Lieutenant, I'd like to ask you some questions concerning January 6th of 2023. That day, what was your involvement into the investigation to the disappearance of Ana Walshe?
I had responded to the command post in Cohasset behind the Stop and Shop off of Route 3A.
And at some point that day, did you leave to retrieve any digital devices?
I did.
Where were you going to get those devices?
The Walsh resident at 516 Chief Justice Cushing Highway.
And how did you know that you were able to go to that location to get those devices?
I initially had spoke to Sergeant Bukhenik, and then I spoke with Attorney Tracy Miner.
When did you speak to Attorney Miner, if you remember?
It would have been just before I left to go there. I'd say sometime in the 4 p.m. hour.
And how did you contact Attorney Miner?
By phone.
And can you tell us about the conversation you had with Attorney Miner?
Yes, I introduced myself. I hadn't met her previously, so made a brief introduction.
Formal introductions.
Told her that I had spoken to Sergeant Bukhenik, that he was out of pocket because he was preparing for a trip to Washington, D.C., and that I'd be handling communications while he was gone. It was a cordial conversation. She was very cooperative. I explained that she had had a previous conversation with Sergeant Bukhenik.
I was going to say that.
And a email communication with First Assistant Lynn Beland. I said, I'd like to go get those devices as soon as possible. She agreed. She said that Brian was home and that I could head over there. We also had a brief discussion about why the timeline of the Walsh oldest child, that he had stated that Ana had touched the device and fixed it for him. That was really important to us because we were trying to hone in on surveillance.
And so what did you tell Attorney Miner about that device? Is that what you said to her?
Yes, we had a conversation about the importance of narrowing down our search timeline for vehicles potentially coming to and from that residence.
Now, why did you want to go get those right now, as you just said?
Well, we were trying to find Ana Walshe. It was important that we got those devices. It was my understanding from other investigators that Ana used different devices. That was according to Brian, that Ana had utilized multiple devices. Brian had stated to investigators in previous interviews that Ana would use his phone from time to time. she had used it for Uber and Lyft. And then obviously the oldest Walsh's device was important because of this account from the oldest Walsh about Ana fixing his iPad prior to her leaving.
They keep referring to him as the oldest Walsh child. He's 6. He's 6. The boys were 2, 4, and 6 at the time. He wasn't a Colin Albert or Colin, depending on who you're listening to. He wasn't 17 or 18 or 16. I don't remember how old Colin was, but he's 6.
So you have this conversation with Attorney Miner. About how long do you think the conversation was?
5 or so minutes.
And after the conversation, where did you go?
I went to the Walsh residence.
When you arrived at the Walsh residence, who was there?
Brian Walsh.
Was anyone else home at the time?
No, not that I remember. I didn't see anyone else.
And what happened when you got to the Walsh residence? What can you just tell us what's your interaction with Mr. Walsh when you got there?
Yes, I pulled in, went up to the front door, knocked. I was encountered by Mr. Walsh. I introduced myself. I had not met him previously. He invited me in.
I was encountered by Mr. Walsh. Is that like, that gives it like some sort of like negative connotation, like he confronted me? You're at his house. I was encountered by Mr. Walsh. You went to his house and knocked on the door.
I pulled in, went up to the front door, knocked. I was encountered by Mr. Walsh. I introduced myself. I had not met him previously. He invited me in. I stepped off to the left, which would have been in the kitchen area, dining area, just to my immediate left. I said, I just spoke with Attorney Miner. Did you know that I was coming? He said, yes. I said, I'm here to retrieve these devices.
And what was his demeanor like when you were speaking with him that night on January 6th?
Very cooperative, cordial, helpful.
And so
Just to refresh everyone's recollection about who Trooper Fanning is, or Lieutenant Fanning, or whatever he is now. He's the guy who was alleged in the Karen Reed motion to dismiss for extraordinary governmental misconduct or prosecutorial misconduct. It was alleged that this guy, Trooper Fanning, was in charge of the jury in the Karen Reed trial. It's also alleged, wasn't Trooper Fanning the guy who talked to a guy who heard from a guy that one of the jurors was at the American Legion Hall drinking and talking about being a juror in the case. And then he reported it to a court officer who reported it to the judge. And then as such, the judge dismissed one of the Karen Reed jurors during the first trial based on Trooper Fanning hearing from a guy who heard it from a guy who heard it from a guy about the American Legion Hall, right? He's the guy. And it was alleged that he was in charge or had contact with the jury. Unlike Judge Freniere, in this case, Judge Beverly Cannone never ordered an evidentiary hearing with regard to any of those things, with regard to the juror issue and the juror being dismissed during, I think it was right before deliberations. I think it was right before closing arguments in trial 1 of Karen Reed. And then in the motion to dismiss, which was before trial 2, the judge also did not order an evidentiary hearing in that case. And here we are in an evidentiary hearing in the Walsh case on a motion to suppress. So it's interesting. He's also the guy who very quickly cleared Matthew Farwell for the murder of Sandra Birchmore in Canton. Right? Sandra Birchmore was murdered by Matthew Farwell, who was a Stoughton police officer. She was 23. He was married. She was pregnant with what she thought was his baby. He thought it was his baby too. Some information has come out now that it may not have been his baby. But he murdered her, made it look like a suicide. And Trooper Fanning, this guy, who I think knew Matthew Farwell and was like buddies with him from somewhere, right? Met him in a parking lot, took a statement from him, quickly cleared him of any wrongdoing, even though they had surveillance video of Matthew Farwell in the lobby of Sandra Birchmore's building. Her body wasn't found for a couple of days, but it was the last time I think that she was seen alive. And then Trooper Guarino, who's up next, I think, didn't find 34,000 text messages on Farwell's phone between him and Sandra Birchmore, which would have revealed that they had had an ongoing relationship. In fact, he met her when she was, I don't know, 10, 11, 12, as part of the Police Explorers program, passed her around to his twin brother and maybe another guy, another cop named Robert Devine, and took her virginity at 15. It was all in there. It was all also on Sandra Birchmore's laptop. And it took the feds getting involved to arrest Matthew Farwell. He's currently awaiting trial in federal court on federal murder charges because this Commonwealth of Massachusetts has still not brought state charges against Matthew Farwell. And this is the guy who cleared Farwell, right? The corruption that runs so deep in Norfolk County and maybe the entire state of Massachusetts and throughout Massachusetts State Police, maybe in some people's opinion, is so much deeper than the Karen Reed case. So much deeper than the Karen Reed case. Let's see what else he's got to say for himself. My freeze game is always on point. Well done to me.
What devices did you think you were going there to retrieve?
His cell phone and his son's iPad mini.
And so, you told him that did you tell him what devices you were looking for when you arrived?
Yes.
And so what happened after you told him about the devices you were looking for?
He went off to my left, past the kitchen into kind of a living room area. There's also a desk in that area, and very quickly came back with the iPad mini that he said was his oldest son's.
And did he produce anything else besides the iPad mini at this point in time?
He gave me his cell phone.
And after you got those two devices, what happens?
He then said that he wanted to go find another device that his kids access.
He wanted
I said,
to.
okay, he thought it would be helpful. At that time, he went to my right, which was into kind of an open, I don't know how to describe it, open room where the dog cage kennel was, and there was a flight of steps that went up to another room. He went out of view that way, and shortly thereafter returned with another iPad with a cracked screen.
And did he say anything when he gave you the second iPad?
He just said, my kids use this. It might be helpful to you.
But you didn't have him sign a consent form either?
What did you say after he gave you the second iPad?
We had just confirmed the passwords. He had told me the password to his cell phone, and he confirmed the passwords on the two other devices, as the kids predominantly use those, and I wrote them down.
And so after you received the passwords, what happened as far as your conversation with Mr. Walsh?
I told him we're going to try to return them as soon as possible. I appreciate him cooperating, and I left the residence.
And so once you left the residence, where did you immediately go to?
My vehicle.
And when you got into your vehicle, what did you do with any of the devices?
I put the two iPads on my passenger seat. I had Brian Walsh's phone in my hand. I checked the password that he gave me to unlock it. It would be normal for me in most situations to put the device into airplane mode to preserve data. In this case, I don't recall putting it into airplane mode because if Anna had tried to reach out, the device wouldn't work. I also went into the text app just to see the last communication with Ana Walshe, the time, which really is just like a timestamp. It could say today, yesterday, or it would go back in time with dates. Then I relocked the phone knowing that I had the correct password and put it back on top of the two iPads.
And once you did that, where did you?
He manually locked it. Hold on one second. One second while I take this call. Hang on. what happens when you have a mother who covers true crime on YouTube. One of my kids just called me because she was freaking out because she was being followed around the mall by a creepy guy. So I had to stay on the phone with her until she got to her car because she had to. At least you got to teach your kids what to do in this kind of situation, right? You got to teach your kids what to do. Be aware of your surroundings. Get a security guard to walk you to your car. Get in your car, lock the doors, drive away. And if you feel like you're being followed, go to the precinct. You know where the precinct is, right? Yeah, it's crazy. It's crazy. It's like crazy out there. Smart girl. Yeah. So I was on FaceTime with her until she got into a car and then, drove away. Nuts. Yeah, she's fine. She was a little bit rattled because she kept seeing the guy in the different stores that she went to. So, all right. Here we go. Aiden was in jail. Aiden Carney was in jail with Brian Walsh at the same time Brian Walsh was in jail. That is correct. All right. Back to Fanning and his shenanigans. Here we go.
Back on top of, then I relocked the phone knowing that I had the correct password and put it back on top of the 2 iPads.
And once you did that, where'd you go?
I went back to the command post.
And so when you got to the command post, Lieutenant, what did you do as far as handling it? Who'd you give these devices to?
Trooper Connor Keefe.
Why'd you give them to Trooper Connor Keefe?
Connor Keefe is back. Remember Connor Keefe? He's the trooper in the Karen Reed trial who was present at the autopsy, right? And he said he was alone, but then it turned out he was really with a different guy that we never heard of. I forget his name. Redding, I think. Redding? I don't remember why that just came to me. But Trooper Connor Keefe was very nervous during his testimony at the Karen Reed trial. He's going to testify today in this hearing as well. It's not really today, but we're watching it today. Here we go. Oh, they can call Lynn Beland even if she's retired. Yeah, it doesn't matter. Subpoena's a subpoena.
Trooper Keefe is one of our forensics examiners. So he was there waiting, and I was arranging for him to take them back to our Canton office for download.
Do you have an idea of when you gave these to Trooper Keefe?
It was immediately following coming back from the Walsh residence.
And so did you give Trooper Keefe any commands at this point in time as far as what to do with these devices?
I gave him the 3 devices kind of stacked up on top of one another with a piece of paper with the passwords. And I told him, you have consent to download and analyze the data of the phone from December 25th until the present.
And did you give him anything else besides those 3 devices and the piece of paper with the passwords?
No.
And on January 6th, did you have any further conversations with Attorney Miner?
I do not recall any conversation with her on the 6th.
Watson.
So,
That's right, Watson.
do you know when those devices were returned to Mr. Walsh?
The afternoon, approximately 1:30 on January 7th.
Now, later that afternoon, were any of the troopers assigned to your detective unit dispatched to the area of Swampscott?
Swampscott.
We're talking January 7th.
January 7th, yes.
Yes, they were.
Okay. And to be clear, we're talking about Saturday, January 7th.
So remember, the phones are seized, or the iPads and the phone are seized on the 7th. He just said that he told Connor Keefe, you can download everything from Christmas to the present. But that's not what was agreed upon. What was agreed upon was only communications between Brian Walsh and Ana Walshe. They went a whole lot further than that. And they all have plausible deniability because nobody talks to anybody over there. And yes, it was Watson. I remember that now because I was thinking like Sherlock Holmes and Watson who was in the autopsy with Connor Keefe of John O'Keefe. Connor Keefe, John O'Keefe, Watson.
Who was dispatched to that area of Swampscott?
At approximately 4 p.m., I dispatched Trooper Kakowski,
Remember
Sergeant
him?
Panazelis, Trooper Gobranson, and Trooper Sullivan.
Where did you send Trooper Kakowski?
CVS in Swampscott.
Why did you send him to CVS in Swampscott?
Because Brian Walsh had told Trooper DeChico and Detective Schmidt that he had went there when he visited his mother.
And where did you send the other 3 troopers, Branson, Sullivan, and Pantazelis?
Whole Foods in Swampscott,
Why did you send them to Whole Foods in Swampscott?
because the defendant said that he had went there when he went up to his mother's residence.
And so why are you sending troopers to these locations that the defendant said he was at?
To confirm if he went there.
And so that was done, those troopers were dispatched on Saturday, January 7th at approximately what time?
Between 4 and 5 p.m.
And that time frame, when was it that you heard back from Trooper Kukowski about the CVS in Swampscott?
I'd say somewhere in the 6 to 7 p.m. range. I can't recall the exact time.
And what was it Trooper Kukowski able to confirm as far as the defendant entering the CVS in Swampscott?
He was not there.
And was Trooper Kukowski dispatched to another CVS at this point in time?
Yes.
Which one?
I don't recall exactly. That wasn't at my direction. That was something he did on his own, which would be normal for investigators.
And
They also charged him with misleading investigators because he said he went to CVS in Swampscott near where his mom lives. And they went there. Here's what I think happened. They went there. They couldn't find any video of him there. So they got pissed off and they're like, okay, let's check his location data in his phone. They didn't care if it was outside the scope of the warrant that they didn't have. It was outside the consent that they didn't have. And based on the fact that they did go to CVS and somewhere else that he said he was, that where he wasn't, because they apparently looked for the location data. Don't you think they might have been able to get, they looked at the video, not the location data. Don't you think they might have been able to get a search warrant to look for his location data because he lied to them? But no, they didn't do that.
did you receive knowledge from Trooper Kukowski if he had discovered the defendant on video of another CVS to confirm his timeline?
Yes, and he did not see Brian Walsh at the other CVS.
Now, going to Whole Foods, who was sent to Whole Foods?
Sergeant Pantazelis and Troopers Sullivan and Branson.
And what were they able to discover as far as confirming the defendant's location at Whole Foods as he relayed to Trooper DeChico?
He did not go there either.
And about what time were they at Whole Foods to discover this?
Somewhere after 5 p.m. on the 7th.
Now, when were you ever notified about the contents of the devices that were given to Trooper Keefe on the 6th?
Around 6 p.m. on the 7th.
And who notified you as far as the contents of any of the devices?
Trooper Nick Guarino.
And
Guarino.
who is Trooper Guarino in your detectives unit?
He's also a forensics examiner.
And how did he notify you?
He called me.
And what did he say when he called you?
He said, I found something in the search history. And that's interesting. I said, well, what was it? And it was numerous searches about dismembering a body, how to embalm a body, how to get rid of a body, numerous searches related to that, another search related to divorce.
And so after he...
But it's cool. It's cool. You weren't supposed to be looking at his Google searches, but it's cool because Guarino called you to tell you that. Is there any evidence? Do you have any chain of custody or any report that says that? Fruits of the poisonous tree. Here we go. Guarino's involved too. Are you shocked? I didn't think so.
Said he notified you of that. Did he communicate to you and other troopers what he had found?
Yes.
How so?
He sent an email.
And as far as analyzing the iPad mini, what was your understanding as further analyzation of the iPad mini at this point in time?
We were going to stop.
And what was going to be done as far as the iPad mini after stopping?
We were going
The data we're talking about.
We were going to
Yes, we had
stop.
stopped, and we were going to obtain a search warrant to seize that device.
So to seize that device. Now,
Oh, but you already had it in your possession. So it wasn't until after he found the Google searches. So funny because, you know, Guarino couldn't find the 227 search, right? Lyndon Martingale. I found something in the search history. That's a first for Guarino. He finds the Google searches and then they're going to get a warrant. Wow. Yeah. Massachusetts, where your constitutional rights go to die. And he's the one telling you about it. No grave concerns here, right?
Where did you believe?
Business as usual.
And we were going to obtain a search warrant to seize that device.
So to seize that device. Now, where did you believe the device was located on the evening of January 7th?
It was back at the home.
And so what was done as far as trying to obtain a search warrant for the home?
We started writing one on the evening of January 7th.
And was one obtained?
Yes.
When was that search warrant executed?
Between 8 and 9 a.m. on January 8th.
Now, were you there when it was executed?
I was.
So when the search warrant was executed, who was home at the Walsh residence?
Brian Walsh, his mother Diane, the 3 children, and their dog.
And
their dog was there too. It's a German Shepherd. You can't make this up.
After the search warrant was initially served, did you have any further conversations with Attorney Miner?
I did. Once we secured the scene, I called Attorney Miner and notified her that we were executing a search warrant at the Walsh residence. She told me that she was headed there and she'd be there shortly.
And how long after that?
So they get a search warrant to search the house on January 8th, based on the fact that they found the Google searches on January 7th, which were illegally obtained. Are you picking up what I'm laying down here? And it was Proctor who wrote the affidavit for the search warrant saying there was probable cause because we found these Google searches, but they weren't supposed to find the Google searches because they weren't supposed to be looking for them. Here we go. Right. Secured the scene, then how to do that? Wow, look, a normal courtroom, says Sandy B, with the defense and prosecutors evenly side by side. Yep. Nobody's attached to the judge's bench like mommy and baby. Or boss baby. Mommy and boss baby.
What did it take for her to arrive?
I'd say 15 minutes or so.
And once she arrived, what happened did you have any further contact with Attorney Miner?
We spoke in the driveway. I handed her a copy of the search warrant and I told her we're searching the residence. Do you have a place for the Walsh family to go? Which she replied she did. And we arranged for her and the Walshes to leave to go to Attorney Miner's house in Situate.
Now, after that interaction with Attorney Miner, did you have any further interaction on Sunday, January 8th with Attorney Miner?
I did.
When was that?
When we went to arrest Brian Walsh.
And where was that?
At her residence.
And what was the contact you had with Attorney Miner at this point in time?
She met us right out front. She actually came out before we got to the door. And I asked where Brian was. She said in the house. I said, we need to go talk to Brian right now. And she said, well, he's not going to say anything. I said, that's fine, but we need to find him right away. We walked right in. Dining room was right off to the left. Brian Walsh was standing there and we placed him under arrest.
Now, Lieutenant, understanding you had the opportunity to have your communications with Trooper Guarino on the evening of Saturday, January 7th. Had you not had the conversations for Trooper Guarino on Saturday, January 7th, what would the State Police Detective Unit been doing to obtain a search warrant for the residence of Mr. Walsh that evening?
Had I not had that conversation with Trooper Guarino?
Yes.
At that point, the information came all at the same time, I would say. But the issue that we were having is regardless of the search history, we were still misled by Brian Walsh.
Mm-hmm.
In the information that he gave us, we spent time and resources going up to confirm his information. I think had we not known that information of the searches, we still would have written a search warrant for the house, less physiological fluid and instruments of the crime.
What information did you?
Here's what they're going to argue. We would have found it legally anyway. No big whoop. No biggie. We would have found it eventually anyway. Inevitable discovery. We would have found it. So it doesn't matter that we didn't do it the right way because we would have found it anyway. That's their argument here. Interesting how they didn't believe Brian Walsh and they went and looked for video, but you know, they believe the people who said the guy didn't come in the house. The guy never came in the house. Right? They went looking for video. They didn't go looking for video in the Karen Reed case. They didn't go looking around for video of the neighbors' ring cameras. And there is still no body. But you know, we would have gotten a search warrant anyway, except for we wouldn't have been able to ask for physiological fluid and instruments of the crime, he says. We're going to look at the papers after this, which will clear it up for you, but just want you to get an idea of what so you can pick up what he's laying down.
Had we not known that information and the information that he gave us, we spent time and resources going up to confirm his information. I think had we not known that information of the searches, we still would have written a search warrant for the house, less physiological fluid and instruments of the crime.
What information did you have?
They would have been able to get a search warrant for the house based on the fact that he lied to them about going to CVS and Whole Foods, according to their review of the surveillance video at both places. Do you think so? Do you think so? I don't know. I'm not a cop. I'm just a lawyer in New York, which is not Massachusetts.
As far as ransom emails at this point in time?
Oh yeah, there was a ransom email. I forgot to tell you guys that. There was a ransom email. We'll go over that later too if you weren't here yesterday. A ransom email that was sent to Cohasset PD.
What information did you have as far as ransom emails at this point in time?
We had received an email, it was on the morning of the 7th, meaning we, Cohasset Police, from a Richard Walker requesting a ransom. And that stating basically that he had Ana Walshe and was requesting a certain amount of money for her to be returned.
$127,000.
Where was the last place Ana?
He was asking for $127,000 and said, we had a deal. And if she doesn't pay us the money, you're never going to see her again. Right? Exactly. Nick is here. Nick can see this from Europe. Nick says, if they searched, Nick Starro, if they searched the devices before they had a search warrant, then nothing obtained from those devices should be used. For what I care, he could have the deed taped legally. Doesn't exist. Yeah. It was a consent warrant. I mean, it was a consent. It was consent to search. So there was no warrant at all. The consent was very specifically detailed in emails between Lynn Beland and Brian Walsh's attorney. It was only for communications between Brian Walsh and Ana Walshe for a 1-week period. And they got everything else, his location data, his Google searches. And yes, I agree with you. Fruits of the poisonous traits could be a big problem. Thanks, Nick, for tuning in.
Walshe had been seen prior to her disappearance, to your knowledge, on the evening of January 7th?
Inside the home on January 1st.
Your Honor, may I have a moment?
Yes.
Right. Was there follow-up with this ransom note? I want to know, Libby, too.
Nothing further, Your Honor.
All right.
Cross-examination.
Let's go, Larry Tipton. Yeah, they couldn't get a warrant when a dead cop was found with one shoe on a front lawn and a cocktail glass. Nope. This is pure duckery. And they couldn't get a warrant when there was a guy, Officer John O'Keefe, on the lawn of what happened to be not the cop's property. This is lame.
Have you reviewed the transcripts of the interviews of Mr. Walsh conducted by Cohasset Police and Massachusetts State Police on January 4th, January 5th, January 7th?
I would say I've, not directly the transcripts, but I have some understanding of them, sir.
So when you testified here just moments ago that Mr. Walsh, Brian Walsh, told one or more of those people that Ana Walshe had used his phone to contact Lyft or Uber. You remember saying that?
Yes, yes.
Where is that? Where is that in the interviews that I just described of Mr. Walsh?
I do believe I read it. I could be wrong for sure, but I do believe I read it. But I feel like that at least some type of communication was given to me at that time.
Well, was it a but you're not suggesting it was a communication given to you by Mr. Brian Walsh. You're saying a communication by one of your colleagues or someone. You're not sure.
Correct. And it could have been one of the child's devices. I'm not sure I testified previously if I specifically just said Brian's phone. But that is what I remember.
Didn't write anything down.
When you testify that based on your conclusion or opinion that Mr. Walsh had misled people with regards to where he was, you're relying on what another trooper reported to you based on his review of what?
Video surveillance and also items that he stated he purchased they had asked about.
And have you looked at those, whatever you're referring to, the videos of, say, CVS and Whole Foods?
No.
And did you, before you relied on that information, did you talk to anybody at CVS or Whole Foods to discuss how their cameras are situated, what they view, what they don't view? Did you conduct anything like that?
Not personally, no.
No. Trust me, bro. Sounds like the worst game of telephone ever, says Carol. Yep.
And you are aware of the fact, aren't you, Lieutenant, that when Mr. Walsh was being asked questions about where he went and where he had been on certain days, that he was being asked those questions at his home, and there was distractions going on during those interviews. You're aware of that, correct?
I'm not I wasn't there.
Are you aware of the fact that on the recordings you could hear a dog barking repeatedly?
I didn't hear the recordings, but that would make sense.
And are you aware of the fact that
First of all, they recorded his interviews, which is shocking in and of itself. At least two of them. January 4th, 5th, and 6th. He didn't listen to he didn't listen to the recordings because it doesn't matter. They just take the other guy's word for it. None of them communicate with each other. YURIY Bukhenik never talked to Fanning about what to collect from the house. Do you see what's going on here? And do you believe it? Or are they just going to say, let's just say we never talked to each other. Tell them the guy never went in the house. Look the other way. And then that way, we all have plausible deniability. Is that just the way it goes there?
Mr. Walsh specifically told the troopers when he was being, I'm sorry, strike that. Are you aware of the fact that when he was being asked questions on January 4th, he was actually talking and telling them that he was tired and hadn't had sleep and words to that effect?
No.
And in your experience as a state trooper investigating crimes, it's fair to say, isn't it, that when someone is being asked questions about a missing spouse, let's say, the mother of their children, they can be under some stress, correct?
Absolutely.
He agrees on that.
Now, you also told us that you were the one
like when Karen Reed said, could I have hit him? Did I hit him? Because she just found her boyfriend dead on the lawn. He just said, absolutely, you could be under some stress. See how they change their answers depending on the case? Listen to that again.
missing spouse, let's say, the mother of their children, they can be under some stress, correct?
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
Now, you also told us that you were the one that went out and retrieved devices on January 6th of 2023, correct?
Yes, sir.
And back in January 6th of 2023, you didn't write in a report about that, did you?
I did not.
No report.
And Then you told us on direct examination today that you remember having a conversation with Attorney Tracy Miner on January 6th, correct?
Yes,
And you didn't write a report about that.
correct.
And what you've done in the last week or so is you've written reports regarding those interactions, correct?
Oh,
Yes,
see what they did? Just like in the John O'Keefe murder case, they knew they had no chain of custody and no reports. So they went back over 2 years later and started writing reports. How many prisoners are clanging on the jailhouse doors to get out of prison because their investigations were handled by these same guys, Proctor, Bukhenik, Fanning? Before he testified that same week, he wrote some reports. Oh, this is good. This is a real-time reaction for me because I haven't watched this yet. Some of you found this in the random streets of YouTube. And since it was aired, since Court TV put it up like 12 days ago. Wow. Here we go. Larry Tipton's going to tell us what's up. Thank you, Bonnie Bailey. I appreciate you so much.
What you've done in the last week or so is you've written reports regarding those interactions, correct?
Yes, sir.
And one of the reports that you just wrote a couple of weeks ago, if not a week ago, you dated that the report date is January 6th of 2023.
Oh, no, you didn't.
Yes, when it happened?
No. The title of your report is Interview 2023-112-4-116, report date 01/06/2023.
Correct.
When you enter those,
Wow. Wow. He just wrote the report in May or June of 2025 when this hearing was held, because it was held on 2 days, and I'm not sure. This might be the June date. I don't know. He dated the report January 6th of 2023, but he didn't write it until 2020. You can't make this up. This is just what they do. Again, freeze game on point.
dates on these maps.
This is just what they do. And the world has never been watching, and we are now. And Larry Tipton is so on top of this. And now he's got to admit it on the stand. Yeah, I dated it January 6th of 2023, but so what? No big deal. No big whoop. It's just the way we do things here. Here we go. Remember Trooper Fanning, when those text messages were sent by Michael Proctor that he was looking for nudes. Isn't he the guy who was on the text chain, but he was on vacation with his 5 kids? And he was like, I never saw those text messages because, I was on vacation with my 5 kids. And, I only have one phone, but I didn't acknowledge the text message or anything. And so he got out of getting any ramifications during his internal affairs investigation, I think. Or did they take a couple of vacation days away from him too? He backdated the report. Yes, he did. You just heard him say that, but we're going to hear it again. Because this is being shadow banned too. Nobody wants you to see this.
Report date 01/06/2023.
Correct.
When you enter those dates on these Massachusetts State Police reports in that particular space, that is supposed to indicate the date the report was written.
It is. I think it's a bit confusing. Sometimes it's the date I'm writing the report. Sometimes it's a newer system that we just had switched over to in the last few.
It's confusing. Date of report is confusing to you, sir? This man has a badge and a gun. Are you afraid? It's confusing. New system. Didn't really know. Wasn't really sure. I didn't think you were going to catch me. I didn't realize that the district attorney had already turned over a whole bunch of discovery from you and this report wasn't in it. I didn't think anybody was going to catch me that I wrote it in 2025 because I put date of report as January 6th. Are you shocked? Hold on. It's confusing where it says date of report. Not really sure what to do. How long has this guy been on the force? Didn't he say over 20 years? Remember Proctor lying on the search warrants for Karen's vehicle, saying that they seized the car in Dighton at 5:30, which we then learned was a lie because there was camera footage from Karen's parents' camera that caught the time as being something like 4:15. Look the other way. Look the other way. Nobody wants you to know about this. You got to hear that again.
Correct.
When you enter
Hold on. Closed captions got lost for a second. Yeah, I wrote date of report 1/6 of 2023. That's what I did.
01/06/2023.
Correct.
When you enter those dates on these Massachusetts State Police reports in that particular space, that is supposed to indicate the date the report was written.
It is. I think it's a bit confusing. Sometimes it's the date I'm writing the report. Sometimes it's a newer system that we just had switched over to in the last few years. Sometimes it's the day I write it. Sometimes it's the date of the actual report.
So,
Well, in fact,
But I usually reflect it in my first sentence, the actual time of the event.
like I just said, you've written no less than 3 reports in the last week or so,
he wrote
reciting what you testified.
Yes.
he wrote 3 reports in the last week or so when this hearing was. Kind of confusing, but no big whoop. No biggie.
And in 2 of the reports, you put report date, May 7th, 2025, right?
Right.
And in the other report, you put the date of May 15th, 2025.
Correct.
So whether the system changed over the years, the fact is the system has been the same since you started drafting these reports years later
He's so good.
about what you recall happened and didn't happen back on January 6th, correct?
Yes.
And one of the things you just told us that when you went to the house on January 6th, that at some point Mr. Walshe went up and got another iPad, a second iPad, correct?
Yes.
And you told us today on direct examination that he said something to the effect of, my son uses this, maybe it'll be helpful, correct?
He
Yes.
just
In
volunteered
the
it.
report that you just wrote in the last week or so, you didn't include anything in such a statement, did you?
I'm not sure.
Not sure. Show it to him, Larry. Show it to him.
Yes.
Can I just see which one you're referring to? Big number.
His reports are dated or were written May 7th of 2025 and May 15th of 2025. And this hearing was either May 20th or June 18th of 2025.
And I'm just going to show you.
The clown car is crowded, says Max.
Just ask you questions about this has a date on it, January 6th. In fact, you want to page 2.
No, this is good, sir. Got it.
That's the report where you talk about going to the house and Mr. Walshe retrieving a second item, correct?
Yes.
How can we believe that that's true,
Nowhere
that he
in
just
report
volunteered
does
it?
say anything about him telling you, my son used this, or words to that effect, that maybe it'll be helpful.
Correct.
And it is fair to say, isn't it, that when you went over to the house to pick up the devices, you had been told that you were to pick up 2 devices, correct?
Yes.
One cell phone and one iPad.
Yes.
And that was pursuant to the agreement that was reached between Assistant District Attorney Lynn Beland and Attorney Tracy Miner, correct?
About 2 devices?
Yes.
I was told to get 2 devices. I'm not sure if the agreement, as I had read it, specifically stated 2 devices.
When you say that agreement, what are you referring to specifically? A written agreement?
The email
Okay.
between Attorney Miner and Attorney Beland.
So as you sit here today, you don't even have a recollection of whether that email that's referred to as the agreement only references Brian Walsh's cell phone and the iPad belonging to the 6-year-old.
As I remember, correct. As I remember it, we talked about what data was going to be extracted and what time frame.
No, but I'm asking you specifically about the devices you had been told to go pick up. You were told to go pick up one cell phone and one iPad.
That was my communication, yes.
And you got that communication from Sergeant Bukhenik.
Sergeant Bukhenik, yes, sir.
It says Bukhenik. Puke.
You didn't talk to Assistant District Attorney Lynn Beland, did you? Regarding the agreement and what you were to pick up.
I do not recall specifically, but she was at the command post that night. I just don't recall a specific conversation with her about it.
No, he doesn't
Yeah.
remember conversations with Lynn Beland, and neither does Bukhenik. Nobody remembers any conversations with her. She's retired now. She got to keep her pension. And he's testifying about stuff in this hearing that's not in the report that he just wrote 5 days ago or 7 days ago. Does it get worse?
When you talked to Attorney Tracy Miner on January 6th, before you retrieved the items, you didn't talk to her about picking up extra items or anything of the sort. You just were talking about one cell phone and one iPad.
Correct.
And it's fair to say, isn't it, that the state of the knowledge of the investigation that you possess on January 7th of 2023, you had no information whatsoever that the iPad that was purportedly belonging to the 6-year-old had been used in any way to go from one location to another or anything like that, correct?
Just give me a second. I'm trying to process the question here. On January 7th, can you ask it again, sir? I'm sorry.
Restate the question,
It was-
because I'm not
yeah.
following it. If I can't follow it,
Sorry about that.
having evidentiary value to me. So why don't we just try that again?
I'll be glad to. I don't think I can follow. My
Steve
question-
says, well, these guys are much less combative at this proceeding. They're also much more nervous. I think they may know their goose is cooked. They look a lot more nervous to me. They also don't have a friendly in the courtroom. Perhaps, maybe. Fanning also did not testify at Karen Reed's second trial. Did he testify at her first trial? I don't think he did, but he was on the witness list.
Is it based on what you had learned thus far
Thanks,
up
Steve.
to January 7th? You had no knowledge that the iPad that you went to pick up on January 6th had been in fact used by Ana Walshe. Had you?
Are we talking about the iPad mini or the cracked iPad?
The iPad?
Well, we did have information from the oldest Walsh that she had manipulated that device.
He's
Right,
6.
but you didn't have any other information other than, quote, the manipulation of the device.
At what time are we talking? In the morning of January 7th? Previous to Trooper Guarino calling me?
Let's start there. Yes. Yes.
No, I did not. No.
And you certainly didn't have any reason to believe that an iPad belonging to a 6-year-old would contain so-called location data or search history or anything like that, did you?
Location data, yes, it could include location data. There was no thought in my mind about search history at that time.
And you say it could have had location data in it, but you didn't have any specific information about any specific location data that might be in a 6-year-old child's iPad, did you?
No.
And you didn't have any information conveyed to you by anyone about another iPad described as a cracked iPad that you retrieved on January 6th also, correct?
Correct.
In fact, when you went there, you weren't even expecting to pick up an iPad, a second iPad, were you?
Correct.
And it's fair to say, isn't it, that the Mass State Police utilizes body cams when they conduct searches, correct?
Yes,
You did so in this case, didn't you?
correct. So We use them until we secure the home, and then we usually deactivate them.
And were you wearing a body cam on January 6th when you went to the house to pick up the items?
No,
No,
And
nobody can.
you are familiar with Massachusetts State Police consent to search forms, correct?
yes,
And you didn't use one or try to use one or attempt to fill one out before you took the items, the devices, for Mr. Walsh that day on January 6th, did you?
no, we were working together cooperatively to find Ana Walshe, and I was happy that we were working together.
No, but I understand your answer.
You were
didn't use the
happy
consent to search form.
that we were working together, so you didn't have this. I guess he wasn't a suspect because you were happy that you were working together. You didn't have him sign a consent form to search his phone on consent because you were happy that you were working together. Can you make this up? They can't even script this in Hollywood because they would laugh you out of a network if you tried to pitch this as a pilot. Because once again, we're in the upside down, inside out, land of the lost. That is Norfolk County, Massachusetts. For some reason, this judge's courtroom is still in Middlesex County. But here's Chaka from Land of the Lost, because sometimes we got to put them up there to remind ourselves that we are in the land of the lost. And if you're a Gen Xer, you'll know that reference. Let's hear the question again. You know about the consent forms, right? And you didn't use one or try to use one before you took the items, right? No, because I was happy we were working together to find Ana.
The search forms, correct?
Yes,
And you didn't use one or try to use one or attempt to fill one out before you took the items, the devices, for Mr. Walsh that day on January 6th, did you?
no, we were working together cooperatively to find Ana Walshe, and I was happy that we were working together.
No,
So happy.
No, I understand your answer, but you didn't use a consent to search form.
There was already an agreement, so I think it wouldn't have made sense after just talking to Attorney Miner, talking to Sergeant Bukhenik, an agreement in writing to then show up with a consent form. I think Attorney Miner would have had a problem with that.
I'm sorry. Would it make sense to do things by the book? Because there was an agreement again, shield and sword. I didn't have to have him sign a consent form because there was an agreement in writing between Lynn Beland and Tracy Miner. And so I didn't have to have him sign a consent form. But then we didn't use the parameters of the agreement because, no big whoop. What? Let's not do things by the book because there's an agreement, but then let's ignore the agreement and search for whatever the hell we want. Roasted bean, Journey, heard it from a friend who heard it from a friend. Yes, Laura. Hi, Laura. YouTube has disallowed my super chat on milestone chat. I don't even know what that means, but I'm sorry about that. I think I deactivated that top fans thing because I didn't like it. And thank you to Lauren who sent me the instructions on how to do that because I could not for the life of me figure it out. I didn't like that. Sorry, Laura. I don't know. And then people's names are being changed. YouTube is changing things. Make sure you're still subscribed because it's been unsubscribing people randomly. So just make sure, just check it while you're here. Just acknowledge the stream and also check that you're still subscribed.
Well, you think that, but
I think an agreement in writing to then show up with a consent form. I think Attorney Miner would have had a problem with that.
I think the word he's looking for is redundant, but he's not going to use it. Instead, he blames it on the girl. Blames it on Tracy Miner. See?
well, you think that, but my question is simple. You used those consent to search forms. You did not use one in this case.
That's correct.
And those consent to search forms, without belaboring the point, they're used to make sure that what you do when it's looked at later on, that there's evidence that there was in fact a voluntary consent and that whatever parameters of any search that was going to be conducted would be followed, and that the person giving consent understood that.
Yes.
Trooperino says the closed captions. Trial 1, we called him Trooperino for that exact reason, Yinzer. They're still doing it. Trooperino. Hey, Jack Strawman, his ankle bracelet was not GPS. I'll go over that later because it's in the papers, but thank you for that. He was wearing an ankle monitor, but it did not
Lieutenant, you were asked a question.
have GPS on it. The only thing it did was clock the time of when he left his house and when he returned to his house. Thank you.
One of your police reports concerning whether or not you had mentioned that the son might have used the iPad for the police report?
Yes.
Do you have a memory of that paragraph where you mentioned that you were asked about as far as the son using the iPad?
You guys are confusing me. I'm sorry. Do I have a,
So confusing, isn't it?
do I have a memory of the paragraph? Is the one I just read?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. Do you remember what you mentioned as far as the son using the iPad in that report? Would the report help you out?
Yes.
You just wrote the report 5 days ago, but you dated it January of 2023, dude.
I'm showing you the report, which has a number of 2003-112-4/116. I want you to take a look at the third paragraph, specifically the second sentence. Go to the third.
Got it.
All right, Lieutenant, did you write in the report whether or not the son used the iPad?
I did.
Nothing further wrong.
You wrote the report 5 days ago. You could say whatever you wanted to say.
The witness may step down.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Your Honor, with the
Unbelievable.
court's permission, I can call my witness.
You may.
Thank you, Your Honor. The Commonwealth would call Connor Keefe.
Connor Keefe. You'll remember him when he takes the stand. Kind of looks like a scared rabbit. I don't know in this how he's going to look, but he did during the Karen Reed trial. He was a rookie at the time.
You solemnly swear or affirm the testimony you shall provide in the matter now and hearing shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God under the pains and penalties of perjury. Please have a seat. And just make sure to keep your voice up. Thank you.
You may
Thank you, Your
proceed.
Thank you, Your Honor. Sir, could you please state your name and spell your last name for the record?
Connor Keefe, Keefe.
And sir, where do you work?
I work for the Massachusetts State Police.
And how long have you been with Massachusetts State Police?
Almost 8 years.
What is your current rank?
Trooper.
Within the state police, do you work for a division, a certain unit?
Yes.
What unit?
Currently assigned to the Norfolk District Attorney's Office.
And do you have any special responsibilities within that unit?
Yes.
What are those?
Digital forensic examiner and cell phone record analyst.
And have you received any training concerning the examination of cell phone or digital devices?
Yes.
Can you tell us kind of briefly what that training has been?
Sure. I have numerous trainings from Cellbrite, which is a cell phone forensics company. Also through Burla, which is a motor vehicle forensics company. I have online and hands-on training through Magnet, and I have cell phone record analysis training from LexisNexis and the FBI CAS team.
Are you familiar with a company called Graykey?
Yes.
And have you received any trainings from them?
Yes.
All of these trainings that you mentioned, do they carry certifications?
Yes.
What does it take to get the certifications?
Majority of the time, it's an in-person 40-hour training.
And so, in addition, have you had to take tests in these different disciplines as far as Celebrate and Graykey?
Yes.
Did you pass those tests?
Yes.
Now, I'd like to ask you some questions as far as your.
If you don't recall, he just testified at the Karen Reed trial. He's the guy who was at 34 Fairview when they found the sneaker and the taillight pieces on the evening of January 29th, 2022 during the CERT team search. And he's the guy who logged it into evidence, remember? That was him.
Involvement in the disappearance of Ana Walshe.
Yes.
When did you first become involved?
January 5th, 2023.
And how did you become involved?
I was requested by my supervisors to assist with analyzing exigent cell phone records from Verizon.
sorry, was that exigent cell phone records?
Correct.
Okay. And whose number did you believe you were examining?
I believe the number was associated with Ana Walshe.
And when was the last time that number connected with the network?
It was January 2nd, 3:14 a.m.
And do you know where that number connected with the network as far as the tower?
It was in the area of 516 Chief Justice Cushing Highway, Cohasset, Massachusetts.
When were you doing this on January 5th?
Late in the evening.
And so now I want to ask you about January 6th. On January 6th, Friday,
Sorry, they pinged her phone on the 5th because remember, she was not reported missing until the 4th.
when did you arrive in Cohasset, if you remember?
Around 8:30 p.m.
And where were you stationed in Cohasset that day?
During the day, sir?
Yes, sir.
At the CP?
In the CP, that's the command post?
Correct.
All right. Now, did anyone ever give you any digital devices that day?
Yes.
Who gave you digital devices?
Lieutenant John Fanning.
What did he give you as far as devices?
He gave me 3 mobile devices.
And what, you say 3 mobile devices. Can you describe them? Can you tell us what they were?
Yes. One was an iPhone 13 mini, one was an iPad 6 mini, and one was an iPad 6.
And about what time do you think you got these devices from Lieutenant Fanning?
Sometime after 8:30 p.m.
And where did you go once you got these devices?
I went to the digital forensics lab at the Norfolk District Attorney's Office in Canton, Massachusetts.
And so you went from Cohasset to Canton at this point in time.
Correct.
And so we're talking about Friday night, January 6th.
Yes.
When you got to the lab, was there anyone else there from your unit to help you?
Yes.
Who was that?
Trooper Nicholas Guarino.
Oh,
So
there's Trooperino.
what was your understanding of what you were allowed to do with these 3 devices?
I was told that Brian Walsh and his attorney, Tracy Miner, provided consent to extract and analyze these 3 devices from December 25th, 2022 through January 6th, 2023.
He understood the assignment.
And so
But wait.
how did you begin to do that extraction
Hold
of
on.
these devices?
He's not supposed to do a complete extraction. I don't know if you have to do a complete extraction just to get text messages, but hang on. Who told you what you were allowed to do?
So what was your understanding of what you were allowed to
Understanding
do
of.
with these 3 devices?
I was told that Brian Walsh and his attorney, Tracy Miner, provided consent to extract and analyze these 3 devices from December 25th, 2022 through January 6th, 2023.
And so how did you begin to do that extraction on these devices?
The first device I extracted was the iPhone 13 mini.
Okay, and so walk me through that. What did you do to extract data from the iPhone 13 mini?
Sure. So in the digital forensics lab, used Gray Key, which is a forensic machine. We use specialized forensic hardware and software. You will have these Gray Key software program running on a forensic computer. You will plug the device into the Gray Key hardware machine, and then the extraction process will begin.
And why didn't you just do all 3 at once?
We are limited to one Gray Key forensic machine in the lab.
And how long does it take for Gray Key to get the data from the device?
Could be hours.
That night, do you know when you began the extraction from the iPhone 13 mini?
Approximately 9:30 p.m.
And do you know when that extraction was completed?
I believe 12:28 a.m. on January 7th.
Okay, so that took approximately 3 hours-ish?
Yes, sir.
After that data was extracted from that device, the iPhone 13 mini, what did you do next?
The next device I performed the forensic extraction on was the iPad 6 mini.
The iPad 6 mini. And did you wait until that was completed?
No,
What did you do?
I went home.
Okay. When was the data finally extracted from that device, if you remember?
I recall about 1:30 a.m.
Okay.
on the 7th.
And you weren't there when it was completed?
No, sir.
When did you return back to the digital forensics lab in Canton to continue your work?
Approximately 10:30 a.m. on the 7th.
Was Trooper Guarino with you at this point in time?
No, he was not.
What did you do next?
Next, I conducted the extraction on the iPad 6.
And when did you begin that?
About 10:50 a.m.
And when was that extraction completed?
Just before 11:30 a.m.
Now, once the data has been extracted from the 3 devices, what do you do with the data?
All the data has to be, so once the data is extracted, it is placed on the forensic server from the Gray Key software.
So how long does it take to get from the Gray Key software into the server?
Again, it could take hours depending on how large the extraction is, how much data there is.
And
Or if you're Aiden Carney, it could take 2 years. They get Brian Walsh's phones back within 24 hours. Aiden Carney's still waiting to get his devices back. It'll be 2 years in October, I think. Yeah. Same guys.
is this one at a time, or can you do all 3 at once?
We tend to do one at a time.
When did Trooper Guarino arrive on January 7th, that Saturday?
About 3 p.m.
And so did you have any difficulties getting the data from Gray Key into the server?
No.
Show notes below.
All right, so the data's in the server. Now what do you do with the data?
In order to read the data, we use a program called Cellbrite Physical Analyzer.
Oh,
And so
right.
how
Case
long-
there's a summary in the show notes below this video. Just close out the chat and you can read them. Extensive notes there for you. Thanks for asking.
Take to get the data from the server to be read by the Cellbrite program?
Again, it could take hours.
And so that day, when were you finally able to start looking at data from any of the devices?
Approximately 5 p.m. on January 7th.
When Gray Key completes extracting data from a device, what is created from Gray Key as far as a report?
There is a Gray Key progress report.
And did Gray Key create progress reports for these devices?
Yes.
And have you reviewed those progress reports prior to today?
Yes.
And are they accurate to your understanding of how Gray Key works and what the device did as far as pulling the data?
Yes.
Your Honor, I apologize, but I think you have my only undoctored copies of the 3 Gray Key reports in the binder.
Only undoctored copies? Did you mean to say unproctored copies?
Objection to counsel, I think we can just move right along. So,
Okay, we'll move along then.
thank you, Your Honor. I'd ask that those next 3 reports from Gray Key be marked as the next 3 exhibits. And I lost my chart, but I believe that would put us at
16, 17.
Thank you, Ms. Borges.
All right, so they're in evidence is 16, 17, and 18. And at some point, I know soon, not today, soon, like tomorrow morning,
Yes,
you're going to have a conversion chart for me.
you are right, Your Honor.
They give it to the judge without a
All right.
conversion
Thank
chart? She's supposed to know Gray Key
And I apologize for the
without a key? Max Banks says, I know I'm dwelling on this, but show the ransom note. Something's up with that, in my opinion. I agree. Why did they just sort of leave the ransom note hanging out there? We got some papers to look at. Maybe it'll explain it better.
What device did you have the opportunity to review? What data from what device did you have the opportunity to review?
The iPhone 13 mini.
Where were you reviewing this data from the iPhone 13 mini at the office in Canton?
I was on the first floor in the forensic lab.
Where was Trooper Guarino at this point in time?
He was on the second floor in the main office area.
And did one of you start before the other, or was it around the same time?
It was around the same time.
What device's data was he reviewing that night?
The iPad 6 mini.
Now, what did you notice when reviewing the iPhone 13 mini as far as the device being unlocked between January 1st and 2nd?
I noticed there were 4 unlocks between that time frame.
That's another thing you weren't supposed to be looking for. The agreement between Tracy Miner, Brian Walsh's attorney, and ADA Lynn Beland was that they were only to look for communications between Brian Walsh and Ana Walshe from Christmas until the present, which was January 6th. They were not supposed to be looking for the unlocking and locking of the phone. Again, fruit of the poisonous tree. But they're unbothered by it because just look the other way. Look the other way.
January 1st, iPhone 13 mini.
Hold on.
What did you notice when reviewing the iPhone 13 mini as far as the device being unlocked between January 1st and 2nd?
I noticed there were 4 unlocks between that time frame.
When you're looking at the Celebrate program, can you just describe for us what does the Celebrate reader look like when you're looking at it?
So Celebrate Physical Analyzer, it's interactive. So it parses the data out to a readable format. It parses it out into calls, contacts, messages, web history, locations, stuff of that nature.
And so what part of the Celebrate program were you looking at as far as analyzing the data?
I went to the timeline view.
All right, what's the timeline view show you?
Timeline view gives you the ability, it shows you all device activity from the whole device.
And so what did you do as far as confining the amount, the time in the timeline that you're looking at?
I condensed the timeline down to January 25th, 2022 to January 6th, 2023.
And so
January 26th? January 6th.
January 6th, December 25th, 2022 to January 6th, 2023.
Got it.
Yes, Your Honor.
But you didn't look at anything else.
And so why didn't you go to December 24th of 2022?
That was outside the consent agreement.
And so when you're looking at this timeline function and you confine it to that area, what access do you have to data before the 25th of December?
None.
So again, you're looking at the timeline feature. And why do you choose to look at the timeline feature?
Because that will narrow down or condense the amount of data in which I am looking at.
Now, while you were looking at the timeline for the iPhone 13 mini that night, did anyone interrupt you?
Yes.
Who?
Trooper David Chico.
David
And
DeChico.
What did Trooper DeChico ask of you?
Trooper DeChico informed me that he conducted an interview earlier in the day on January 7th, and Brian Walsh stated that on January 2nd, the only place he went to was Press Juice Bar in Norwell, Massachusetts.
And so after hearing that from Trooper DeChico, was there anything, did he ask you to do anything?
He asked me to confirm or corroborate if there was any location data associated with that.
Congratulations for saying corroborate correctly. You're the only one, because we heard somebody else say corroborate yesterday. I don't remember who it was. The way that Hank Brennan says it, corroborate. DeChico said, look for the location data to find out if he was at the juice press place. Doesn't matter that it was outside the scope of what they were supposed to be looking for, because DeChico told it to. Because remember DeChico. DeChico was on the text message thread with Michael Proctor, going back again to the Karen Reed case. When Michael Proctor was saying, yeah, you know, we tried that whack job, Emmy. She wouldn't change the manner of death from undetermined to homicide. YURIY and I went to visit her, how to talk to her, you know, how to come to Jesus with her at least 3 times. She won't do it. She's a whack job. DeChico said, rookie move. Should have had me and Jeff do it. Jeff Kukowski, he's also involved in this case. They're used to coloring outside the lines, my friends. DeChico told me to look at the location data, so I did. See?
This is on.
Listen. Press Juice Bar in Norwell.
Massachusetts. Second, the only place he went to, Walsh stated that on January 2nd, the only place he went to was Press Juice Bar in Norwell, Massachusetts.
And so after hearing that from Trooper DeChico, was there anything, did he ask you to do anything?
He asked me to confirm or corroborate if there was any location data associated with that.
So this is on January 7th. You're looking at the timeline data and you're talking to Trooper DeChico.
Yes.
And what do you discover as far as location data on January 7th?
So prior to that, after Trooper DeChico told me, through the timeline application within Cellbrite, I filtered out all data but native location data within January 1st to January 6th.
Okay.
And from then, I started my analysis for January 2nd.
No, if you're tuning in late, there was no search warrant for the phone. There was a consent to search the phone for a very limited purpose. Only text messages or communications between Brian Walsh and his wife, Ana, between Christmas and the present. There was a consent agreement between the district attorney's office and his attorney. They did not have Brian Walsh sign a consent form when they took his device. They were only supposed to take 2. They took 3. And now they're looking into all kinds of other things like location data and all kinds of other things when they could have got a warrant, but they didn't. They just do whatever the hell they want.
What is native location data in cell phone analysis?
Native location data is embedded in the Apple iOS operating system. It can come from a number of different things: Bluetooth, satellites, GPS, Wi-Fi, a number of different things.
And how is the device doing that?
The device constantly communicates with different technologies.
Now, you've confined the location data, the native location data from January 1 to January 6th, and you're looking at what time frame now?
The whole time frame.
And did you have any further conversation with Trooper DeChico about what you're seeing on January 2nd?
Yes.
What'd you say?
Approximately 4:15 p.m., January 2nd, 2023, the device is in the area of Home Depot in Rockland, Massachusetts.
Now,
What you call the fruit of the poisonous tree. You can fight me on it. Brian Walsh could be guilty as hell, but you can't obtain evidence illegally and then use the fruits of that search illegally. This is going to be a problem, I think.
further with Trooper DeChico at this point in the evening?
Not that I recall.
Did you have any conversations after that with Trooper Guarino?
Yes.
And when was it that
Didn't
Trooper
freeze.
Guarino
Freeze?
talked to you that night?
Approximately 6:30 p.m.
And what was it that Trooper Guarino approached you about?
He had found some concerning search.
It was buffering. I'm on Ethernet. I shouldn't be buffering. If it happens to you, just go out of the stream and come back in. We could be breaking the internet. I don't know. StreamYard's been having issues for weeks. I know, but it says I have a good connection and I'm on Ethernet, so I shouldn't. Did we miss something? All right, everyone said it buffered, but I'm watching it on my phone and it didn't buffer, so that's weird. All right, I'm going to take it back then, a question or two. In case you missed any of my stellar commentary, I don't remember what I said. I don't know when the motion's going to be decided. It's not decided yet. However long it takes the judge to write his decision. Here we go.
2023. The device is in the area of Home Depot in Rockland, Massachusetts.
Now, do you talk any further with Trooper DeChico at this point in the evening?
Not that I recall.
Did you have any conversations after that with Trooper Guarino?
Yes.
And when was it that Trooper Guarino talked to you that night?
Approximately 6:30 p.m.
And what was it that Trooper Guarino approached you about?
He had found some concerning searches on the device that he was analyzing.
And he was looking at the iPad Mini 6?
Correct.
The one without the crack screen?
Yes.
Okay. And what was it that now he tells you this? Do you do anything to look at the data that he's talking to you about?
No.
Okay. So what did he tell?
Okay, so Paul said, it buffered for me, right? As you said, can you see what's happening here? Okay, so can you see what's happening here? They illegally got his location data. They found out he was at Home Depot. Then they went to Home Depot and they got some video of him at Home Depot buying some things and stuff that could be related to a crime. But because they got the location data illegally, the fruit of the poisonous tree by going to Home Depot and getting the video is also should be suppressed under the Constitution of the United States of America against illegal searches and seizures, you know, and stuff.
Tell you about.
He told me there was a number of concerning searches that occurred on the iPad.
So what was done as
Words
far as any
most
further
people
searching of the
searches.
iPad 6 mini?
To my knowledge, Trooper Guarino, he had stopped his analysis and informed the supervisors.
Now, with what you were looking at, which was the iPhone 13, did you stop your analysis as far as the work you were doing on the iPhone 13?
No,
So on the iPhone 13, did you have the opportunity to do any further analysis as far as native location data on that device?
yes,
When did you do that?
January 8th.
And what were you analyzing as far as native location data for the iPhone 13 device on January 8th?
January 1st through January 6th.
And in reviewing that data, did you notify any troopers to go anywhere?
Yes,
Who did you call?
I called Lieutenant Fanning, I believe,
Okay. And where did you want to send troopers to?
the Claremont Apartments in Abington, the Point Apartment Complex in Abington, and Chatham West in Brockton, Massachusetts.
And why did you want to send troopers to those locations on January 8th?
Because at that time, it was still a critical incident. And Ana Walshe was missing, still missing at that time. And we wanted to try and locate her.
And why those apartment complexes?
Put her on to see if she might have went there or
Well, how do you know, like, is the phone telling you that it's at those locations? Why are those locations significant to you? How do you know to go to those how do you know to send troopers to those locations?
in order to collect surveillance, see if anyone had seen her or
Sure, I understand that's the why. I guess the question is
Because you
how.
got the location
So
data.
what is it that you saw in the phone that said go there?
GPS points or native location points within those different areas.
You solemnly swear or affirm the testimony you shall provide in the matter now and hearing.
Okay, wait, did they just cut that off at that exact point?
The iPhone 13, did you have the opportunity to do any further analysis as far
Wait a minute. It just jumped, right? What the hell just happened? This is, I'm telling you, this is like,
GPS points or native location points within those different areas.
it just, I mean, that's what Long Crime did. They just cut it off right there. Are they shadow banning this? They don't want you to see it? Here comes Trooperino, but it didn't jump. That's where we were. And now it's just going to go into Trooper Guarino. Emily C, if you don't follow her on Twitter, you should, because she did an amazing Hank's Diary entries. Says it's like a spin-off show with some known characters and some new, a la Saved by the Bell, the college years, screwed by the cops, the Norfolk district. Yep. Yep. Living that GP life. Thanks for the 10. My hubby just walked in and heard you talking without looking and asked what case Melanie was covering. Now that Karen Reed is freed. So I told him, and now he's watching this too. We love you. Oh, I love you guys. Thank you. I seem to host a lot of date nights. The Goodmans are they may not be here now, but the Goodmans always watch me on date night too. Fiona from South Africa says, new sub, love your style, experience, and insights. People should be worried with the memory issues law enforcement has in these counties from South Africa. Thank you so much, Fiona. Welcome. Welcome. David Reese says, encountered by his cops trying to sound like cops. Mm-hmm. And Manj, thanks for your super sticker. Appreciate you. Joe Schmo says they completely understand protecting a client's constitutional rights, but it must be a bit interesting getting a client off that could actually be the murderer. Yes. Yes. I think it's much harder to defend an innocent client. I've never been a criminal defense attorney. I don't pretend to be a criminal defense attorney. But I imagine from what they tell me. Angela says the truly most awful thing about all of this is that if a lot of these people actually did the crimes, but then are acquitted or something else when the charges are removed, it's because of them doing bad investigations. That's right. You're correct. They're cutting corners here, as you can see. ShamWow says the ransom was supposed to be $227,000. Well done. Neo says, don't they realize that they look like the Keystone Cops? I think they're too like narcissistic to care. Oh, the Goodmans are here. The Goodmans are here. They said that we're always here. Thank you, Neo, for your 20. I appreciate you. I think they're too narcissistic to care. Jojo says, can you just have the FBI barge in just like the Kool-Aid man already? That's hilarious. I love that comment. I put it up twice. Thanks, Jojo. Nana Banana says, backdate is a nice way to say falsified official documentation. Yeah. Or create a chain of custody where none ever existed based on my false memories. Lynn says, is there a chance this judge will toss the case unlike Cannone's baloney? Remains to be seen. We'll see. Thanks, Lynn, for becoming a new member. Welcome. I think you're going to like it here. I have questions. Says, who cares if the state violated Walsh's rights every chance they got? The judge will allow a robust cross-examination. That's what's so bizarre about that. Even the Judge Cannone saying that, like, you're always supposed to get a robust cross-examination. That's the whole point of a trial. Amanj, hey, so happy we're back together again, too. I've lost my head already. Who knew it could happen again so fast? MSP is a disgrace right now. All this is going on behind the scenes while we were busy freeing Karen Reed, and now we get to catch up on this stuff. This hasn't been ruled on yet, and the trial's not scheduled until October, so we've got time. Salt Sprinkler said, DA Marcy accepted this case, the Reed case, and rejected the Matt Farwell case. How many other cases are like this since he's been elected in 2010? Interesting thing about Massachusetts, they appoint their judges. Their judges are not elected. We elect our judges in New York, and so appointed judges, do they owe people things and favors and stuff? I don't know. People think that. Emmy says, hi, Melanie. I do not like the defensive and dismissive responses of Fanning. There should be a careful review of MSP cases involving Guarino, Fanning, Bukhenik. Proctor isn't the only bad actor. Tully had his hands in lots of stuff too. Emmy, I know you know. Thanks for your 10. Thanks, Natalie, for becoming a new member. Welcome. Dennis says, where's the body? Don't know. Unfound. No body. Right. I think they found a piece of bone. I have 3 other videos on this case, so watch the first 2. I have to go back and refresh my own recollection because I did them about 8 months ago. Thank you, Skybell, for gifting a membership. Let's get back to Nicholas Guarino is now coming to testify. Here we go.
Do solemnly swear affirm the testimony you shall provide in the matter now and hearing shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God under the pains and penalties of perjury. I do. Please have a seat. Just make sure.
So we did not get to see any cross-examination of Trooper Connor Keefe. I'm going to have to see if I can find it somewhere because Law and Crime mushed this all into one video. And I don't think it was televised live.
Make sure to sit nice and close to that microphone and keep your voice like that. Thank you.
You may proceed.
Thank you, Your Honor. Good morning, sir.
Good morning.
Could you please state your name and spell your last name for the record?
Yes, Nicholas Guarino, Guarino.
And, sir, where do you work?
For the Massachusetts State Police at the Norfolk County District Attorney's Office.
How long have you been with the Massachusetts State Police?
About 10 years now.
And how long have you been attached to the Norfolk District Attorney's Office?
November 2019, so about 5 years, 6.
And I take it that your current rank is trooper then?
Yes, it is.
Within that unit attached to the District Attorney's Office, do you have any specific responsibilities?
Yes.
What are those, sir?
Cover for the other
I'm
guys.
a forensics investigator doing cell phone and computer forensics and also a sexual assault investigator.
And what training have you had as far as digital forensics? Just kind of a brief overview.
Numerous trainings through Cellbrite, Magnet Axiom, Berlin Motor Vehicle Forensics, Great Key Training, all that.
All that
Including Cellbrite?
stuff.
Yes, sir.
Now, when did you become involved into the investigation concerning the disappearance of Ana Walshe?
The night of January 6, 2023.
And you say the night, so that would have been Friday night, January 26th, January 6th of 2023?
Yes, that's correct.
And where did you go to begin your work into this case?
To the Norfolk County DA's office.
And within the Norfolk County DA's office, is there a specific place where you were able to do your work?
Yes, that's correct.
Can you tell me about where is that located?
Yeah. So on the first floor, we have a digital forensics lab
Yes, sir.
where we have specialized hardware and software computer systems to extract digital devices.
And who did you meet there that night when you were working on this matter?
Trooper Connor Keefe.
And what did the two of you do that evening as far as working on this matter?
Yeah. So we were provided 3 devices to be extracted and examined at some point.
And that night, about what time do you think you left the district attorney's office?
It would have been 12:45 on, technically it would have been the 7th of January.
And
Technically?
Had you finished downloading all the devices?
No.
And forgive me, I just want to make sure I get this right.
Mhm.
What are you doing with the devices on the 6th?
So each device has to be plugged into whatever we're using to extract the software, the data. So for this one, we use Gray Key for the devices.
Okay. And so had you completed all the devices that night?
No, the first had been completed, and then the second one had started. And once we knew that it was pulling the information correctly, I left for the night.
And when did you return to work on this matter?
Would have been January 7th. I got to the office probably around 2:45, 3 o'clock in the afternoon.
And when you got to the office, sir, what was the status as far as the devices having the data pulled from them?
The third device had been pulled, I believe, that morning, and they had been returned prior to my arrival to the office.
So the devices weren't there at this point in time?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay. So what do you do now that the data's been pulled from the devices?
So they have to be downloaded from Gray Key, and then once downloaded, they go onto our server. Once there, we have to open them in either Cellbrite or Magnet Axiom to view the information from the devices.
Okay. And so that day, what program did you, well, so when you got there at, say, 3 o'clock, what step in the process are you as far as analyzing the data?
I have to download it from the server from Gray Key, and then from the server, from the DA's office server, we have to open it into Cellbrite or, like I said, Axiom to have that data viewable. That's what the programs make that data viewable and readable.
Okay. And so which program did you use to view the data of the devices on January 7th?
I only looked at one device. It was the iPad Mini 6. I used Cellbrite.
And were there any parameters on what you were allowed to look at as far as the iPad Mini?
Yes, there was a date range that was given to us for December 25th, 2022 to what would have been the 6th when we extracted the information.
And when did you start looking at the data from the iPad Mini?
It would take about an hour or so to download the information from Gray Key, and then another couple hours to open it. So it was probably closer to 5 o'clock that afternoon or evening.
And to be specific, there were 2 iPads that were turned over. This is an iPad without a cracked screen. It's an iPad Mini 6. Is that right?
Yes, that's correct.
So where were you in the office when you were looking at this data from the iPad Mini 6?
The second floor forensic computer by my desk.
And where is Trooper Keefe in relation to you when you're doing this?
He had gone downstairs to the other forensic computer down in the digital forensics lab.
And what did you do as far as beginning your search or analysis of this data?
Once it opened in Cellbrite?
Yes, sir.
Yes. So once it opened in Cellbrite, would have looked at the timeline view. So I loaded timeline and filtered by the date range that was given.
Now, why do you use the timeline view?
Multiple reasons. It's the easiest way to pare down the the data by date range, and it gives a comprehensive list of how the devices interacted from the 25th to the 6th, as told.
And what did you begin to notice while you were going through this data in the timeline range?
So it has every device interaction, what's been done with it. Started seeing searches on the 27th of December for best places to get divorced, worst places to get divorced, best states for divorce.
And after the 27th, did you notice anything further that caught your attention when you were analyzing?
Well, that's really funny because all of the reports, because I've been questioning that search, best place for a man to get divorced. All of the reports say that it was done on January 27th of 2023. He's saying it was December 27th of 2022, but all the reports say January 27th of 2023. And I've been questioning that all along. Like, how did they find a search in the future? And now he's telling us it was December, not January, because they're all incompetent and typos are a thing.
The data for this device?
Yes, the morning of the 1st, approximately about 4:55 a.m., began seeing searches of how to dispose of a body.
And
These are the Google searches now
after starting to
that
see
they
these
weren't
searches,
supposed to be looking for. They don't know the word no. They do whatever they want. And again, these searches are starting New Year's Day around 4:50 a.m. But remember, the 6-year-old that was interviewed by Bukhenik says that his mom was in pajamas and then she went upstairs and got dressed and then she left to get in her cab between 6 and 7 a.m. So he's saying these searches started at 4:50 a.m. about how to dispose of a body. If you haven't heard of them, they will shock you. They're really stupid searches for a person to be making if they did a crime like this.
Morning of the 1st, approximately about 4:55 a.m., began seeing searches of how to dispose of a body.
and how, after starting to see these searches, what did you do?
So I went through the information, the data, probably up to about the 2nd.
They're admitting
I
what
saw
they did.
Numerous searches about body disposal, removal of smell, Cohasset dump, cadaver dogs at the dump, and I contacted.
There's nothing about cadaver dogs.
I went downstairs and contacted Trooper Keefe to tell him what I had found search-wise.
Okay. And after speaking with Trooper Keefe, what did you do?
I contacted Detective Lieutenant Tully and advised him of the search items I found.
Tully.
Who is Detective Lieutenant Tully in relation?
Oh, Tully's got his hands in everything. I knew Tully would be involved in this somehow. The searches were from the kid's iPad, but they weren't supposed to be looking for any Google searches or any location data. They had a consent only to search for communications between Brian and Ana. That's the problem here. And they're all admitting that they did it. They went outside the scope. They're all admitting it.
With Trooper Keefe, what did you do?
I contacted Detective Lieutenant Tully and advised him of the search items I found.
Who is Detective Lieutenant Tully in relation to your unit, the state police?
He was in charge of the unit at the time.
And who is the executive officer?
Trooper John Fanning.
And-
Lieutenant John Fanning.
Lieutenant John Fanning. And so you call Detective Lieutenant Tully, and what do you decide to do as far as your analysis of the data at this point in time after speaking with Detective Lieutenant Tully?
Yeah, so I took that information from the searches. I created a PDF and emailed it out and stopped looking at the data on the iPad mini after that.
Okay.
Why'd you stop?
And
Why would you stop unless you knew that you were doing something wrong? Why would you stop if you thought you were allowed to look for all that stuff? If you thought you had consent to look for all of that stuff, why would you stop? Ask yourselves that. Because now we're going to get a warrant Better to beg for forgiveness than ask for permission in the form of a real search warrant.
You said you emailed it out?
Yes.
Your Honor, may I approach?
May.
Thank you, Your Honor. Halfway there, sorry.
The data from the ankle monitor did not have GPS, you guys. It only had times.
Yes.
Is that the email that you sent out to the members of the detective unit that night after seeing the data?
Yes, that is correct.
And what time did that email go out?
6:25 p.m.
On what day, sir?
Sorry, January 7th, 2023.
Thank you. Your Honor, this has already been marked as an exhibit within the book. And I believe I have that number right here for you, Your Honor. It is Exhibit 17.
Can I ask a question?
Please do.
Clarification.
We'd all like to know.
Exhibit 17.
Yes, Your Honor.
At some point in time in the pleadings, I believe, I saw what I thought at the time was, based on what I knew of the evidence, what I thought was an incorrect date with regard to the searches.
Thank you. Same thing I picked
Call
up.
them the best place to get divorced. I
Yes.
believe in some of the pleadings, I think it was the defense's pleadings. I'm not sure. It could be the prosecution's pleadings. That the date of that is listed in January.
Everywhere.
And that I remember reading it and thinking that's not consistent with what I thought the state of the evidence is. This witness has just testified that it was on, he started seeing searches on the 27th of December of 2022, which is correct.
I like
Is
her.
there any dispute about this?
No, and I would just like to say, it wasn't my mistake because we didn't discuss divorce stuff, so I'm happy to say that I didn't make a mistake.
It was well, now that you got me curious,
It's on all the
it
pleadings.
was in a list of, I thought it actually was in the
Yep.
defense's paper, just so that if you,
Judge, I don't mean to interrupt, but if you're referring to one of our exhibits, that was the exhibit produced at the grand jury by one Michael Proctor. So
Right.
if there's
it's
an error-
actually, I'm not referring to that, counsel. I'm referring to page 3 of your memorandum in support of your motion to suppress the search warrants. And on that, it says, A, best state to divorce for a man, 1/27/23.
That's the data they were given by Proctor. I love this judge because she picks up the same things that I pick up. She's paying attention. She knows the case. And that's the information that Proctor gave. So of course the defendant's going to copy that into their moving papers because that's what Proctor said.
At 9:54:13 p.m.
Yeah,
So I
Your Honor, that was mine, and that must have been a
All right,
clerical error.
I'm just trying to get the.
It's not a
accurate
clerical error.
data.
It's Proctor.
Your Honor, I think I can help counsel. Oh, thank you. Because it is a typographical error in one of the search warrants.
Of course.
That's fine, just,
And I believe that that's how counsel got it. And so I see where it comes from. It's from a typographical error within one of the warrants. You picked up on it. quicker
Right.
than we did.
well, because the data is new to me and it's old to you, so you gloss over it, which
Right.
is totally normal.
They gloss over everything like search warrants, consent forms, reports that they just wrote 5 days ago and then backdate them back to 2023. This courtroom is actually in Middlesex County because that's where the judge is currently sitting, but the case is pending in Norfolk County. That's why it's like a 1970s style courtroom. I don't know why either.
I don't know anything about this case other than what you teach me.
Your Honor, I apologize. On page 3, that was a cut and paste from the warrant, just to show the court exactly what was put in. But we agree it's
I totally
12/27.
understand all.
Michael Proctor does that a lot. He cuts and pastes things from warrants. That's what he claimed his excuse was for putting 5:30 as the time of seizure of Karen's car from Dighton. He just cuts and pastes. I like her too.
Of that. I just wanted to make sure that I have the right information.
And Your Honor, we all agree it's 12.7.
Good. Thank you.
Thank you, Your Honor.
I'd like to see what the extraction report says. Give us the
So
real
You
papers.
said it was we're looking at number 17,
Yes, Your Honor.
and for some reason I can't find that. Oh, here it is.
Again, says Proctor should be in jail, not featured on ABC puff pieces. Yeah, agreed. Agreed that your opinion is valid. All the reports that Proctor spelled wrong on his reports in Karen's cases. Yep. Karen's case. all the wrong spellings of the
All right,
witnesses so they couldn't be
this,
found.
email says something different than what we just discussed, but
Oh,
I guess the underlying records will tell the dates, whether it was the 27th or the 28th. Exhibit 17, I see.
mm-hmm. Gloss over it should be merch. I love it. This is Kiki Kazoo. No, that wasn't. That was another woman who has like. Oh, wait, I thought that was. Wait, was it McLaughlin? McLaughlin.
All right, sorry to interrupt. Are you done with this witness?
No, Judge.
No, I have a few more questions, Your
Let's
Honor.
get it
All right, you
right.
go right ahead.
Thank you, Your Honor. May I approach or show the counsel?
Yes.
Thank you. Trooper, I'm showing you a Celebrate document.
Thank you.
And for the record, it's marked as Exhibit 18 in the binder, Your Honor. Trooper, do you recognize the Celebrate document?
Yes.
What is the Celebrate document?
This is the searches. This is the web history search, web history. from
David Reese says,
the
wait,
FY Committee.
Fanning says Trooper Reno contacted him. Wait, did Trooper Reno just say that? Trooper Reno contacted Fanning, and did Trooper Reno just say that Fanning contacted him? I'm getting confused, David.
And so this is what you're alerting the other troopers to in your email.
Yes.
Sorry, bless you.
Thank you.
This is in Woburn. He said it's
So-
pronounced Woburn.
What exhibit? Because it's not on the list. Is this
18?
18.
so it's a new exhibit?
It was in everything that we already attached. So, Trooper, you sent this email out, you had a conversation with your unit commander. What did you decide to do as far as further analysis of the data from the iPad 6 mini?
Again, due to the searches and speaking with my commander, I stopped looking at the data.
Commander. Fun fact, because this is kind of like Gilead. This is like a Handmaid's Tale sort of thing. If anybody watches The Handmaid's Tale, Gilead was actually headquartered in Boston. Go figure. Just like, the people who hate Karen Reed want to see her stoned in town square before she was hung up on the wall. Gilead is headquartered in Boston. And he just said, my commander. If you know, you know. People are saying Woburn. It's Woburn. I said Woburn. No, it's Woburn. Under your eye. Praise be. Blessed be the fruit.
What was your next steps as far as working on, what was your next decision on what you wanted to do as far as any further analysis on this, or to get your hands on this device?
We needed to work in the search warrant for the home to the devices were there to get them again and re-image them, post a search warrant for those the devices that we get.
So you said a search warrant for the home. Were you present for a search warrant of the Walsh home in Cohasset?
Yes, I was.
And when was that, sir?
Sunday, January 8th in the morning.
And what was seized from the home as far as devices that morning?
There was 3 MacBooks, the iPhone 13 mini, the iPad 6 mini, the iPad 6 with the cracked screen, another iPad that I don't remember the exact model number of, and an iPhone SE.
Your Honor, may I just have one moment?
Silent R, so it's Woburn.
And I neglected to ask you, and just one last question. On that report I just showed you, was that in UTC time?
The web history search?
Yes, sir.
Yes, that's correct.
And so what would need to be done, what do you need to do to UTC time to understand what time that search would be conducted in the East Coast in, say, January 2023?
Due to daylight savings, it would be minus 5 hours to the time that's listed.
Oh, Trooper Reno, are you going to say that Celebrite is accurate with regard to search times now? In Karen Reed's case, 227 never happened. Haas Long to Die in Cold was not made at 227. So how are you going to tell us here in this court now that all the times of Brian Walsh's searches are accurate? Wow. Because remember, they changed the Celebrite software because of Jennifer McCabe. Remember, they tried to teach us that in the Karen Reed trial. Woobin. Thanks, Cynthia. Time doesn't drift here, right?
Cross
Yeah.
example.
Guess not.
Why did you stop?
What's that, sir?
Why did you
That's
stop?
what, why did you stop?
The searches, the data. To me, the searches that I saw looked like something more than a missing person.
Great. So? Larry's just looking at him like, okay, and?
You told us just now on direct examination that you spent about an hour to transfer the extracted data, correct? Once it's off the Great Key?
Yes, that's correct. It has to download from their server.
And then it took about 2 hours just to upload it and to celebrate physical analyze?
Yeah, give or take, sir.
And then you started your analysis about 5 p.m.
Approximately, yes.
Okay. And
They lie about times, though. Larry, you know that. You know, Larry, you watched the Karen Reed trial. You know.
it's fair to say that then it's about an hour later, after you've been looking at the data, that's when you began to see these search histories that caused you some concern.
That's correct, sir.
And then it wasn't until about 20 or 30 minutes later, based on that email that's been admitted, that you then stopped and emailed.
I had stopped prior, but I had to export the information, that web stuff, so that takes time, and then put it into the email.
So it's fair to say then that you spent about an hour from 5 to say approximately 6, approximately 5 to approximately 6, looking at the data.
Yes, that's correct.
And you spent about an hour looking at, for instance, the search history data.
It was in the timeline, yes.
Yes, and so it took you an hour to scroll through and look at that data before you even came upon these suspicious searches.
Yes, that's correct.
So it wasn't that when you opened up the timeline feature and then put in the time parameters, that suddenly these suspicious search histories popped up and you looked at them and recognized them as, in your opinion, suspicious. You had to scroll through hundreds of search history data before you even got to it, correct?
Yes. If there was numerous bits of information in that data, so it's everything that was on the device, how it was utilized. So I believe it was like 190,000 different entries of data.
Well, you certainly downloaded a whole hell of a lot more than the consent that you had, didn't you? And you thought it was suspicious? Did you say you thought it was suspicious and it was more than a missing person, so he stopped? But you didn't think a Google search of Hostelong to Diane Cold was suspicious? Or did he not even find that one on Jennifer McCabe's phone? Or did he not find that it was deleted? Or did he not find, he's got a history of not finding a lot of things, like 34,000 text messages on Matthew Farwell's phone between him and Sandra Birchmore. Oh, sir, why are you going to die on the Celebrate Hill? Not a good look.
And you would agree with me, wouldn't you, Trooper Guarino, that if you had been instructed that the parameter was limited to communications, you wouldn't have been looking at that search data, scrolling through it for an hour, would you?
No, I would have.
Even though you were given parameters of communications only?
I wasn't given that parameter.
No, I
Oh,
understand.
yeah.
I probably was confused. I apologize. If you were given strict parameters that you were only to look for communications, and there was no indication of search history or location data or anything of the sort, you wouldn't have been scrolling for an hour through that search history, would you?
It would depend. There's multiple ways to have communications on a device.
Really?
Like a web chat feature, calls.
That was their talking point, web chat feature, because Ana Walshe had been, there's information in some of the papers we haven't gotten to yet, that when she would communicate with JetBlue, she would do the live chat with JetBlue. So, since they didn't know if she had gotten on a flight, they were going to try and look for the live chat with JetBlue. So they've all been told, these are their talking points. Say web chat feature, say web chat feature, because that's going to get us into some more communications, even though we know we effed up and went way beyond the scope of the consent. Say that, there's lots of ways to communicate, like WhatsApp and Viber, which is an app that I never heard of that they brought up the other day. He's the not finderino, Ashley. So well done. Say web chat feature. Multiple ways to have communication. So, we're looking for it all.
Like a web chat feature, calls, obviously the regular calls, texts, but the app data also has like Snapchat loads differently. So there's multiple ways to find only the communication data.
Right, and once again, celebrate physical.
He didn't find Haslong.
All these categories you can check off, correct?
Yes.
Regarding communications, correct?
That is correct.
But you didn't check off any of those because you didn't know, you didn't believe, you weren't told that there were in fact parameters.
The parameters I was told was the date range and that communications prior to the 25th were privileged because there may have been attorney-client privileged items.
No.
And when you just now refer to app data, it's fair to say that isn't it that what you were using, the Celebrite Physical Analyzer, actually segregates, can pull out app data separately and inform the entity. Here's app data. You can look at this as app data.
Again, it would depend on the app.
Mm. Yeah, people think the feds are done. You think they're done? Salt Sprinkler says, I guarantee they're extremely busy with this entire group.
So,
Did he laugh again? Remember he laughed on the stand?
just so it's clear,
Excuse me. I'm good, sir. Thank you.
when we hear about this timeline feature and things like that, with the Celebrite Physical Analyzer, it's not that when you open up the timeline feature, all of a sudden, all of this data we're talking about, all these search histories, they pop up on the screen. You have to begin to methodically scroll through them and analyze each one.
Yes and no.
Okay. And that, yes and no.
Yeah.
Funny? Something
You
funny?
had to scroll through an enormous amount of data to even get to what you consider to be the suspicious searches.
Again, yes and no.
Okay. Yes. All right.
I'm sorry.
Funny?
That's all I have. Thank you. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Redirect.
Let me further on.
The witness may step down.
Thank you.
And that's it. And that's where it ended.
South of
Oh, look.
Boston.
And then I came up on the screen. I don't know what that is, but that's funny. All right. That was the video that just came up automatically after that one. I don't know if there's more of this hearing that we can find somewhere that contains Connor Keefe's cross-examination. Salt Sprinkler says, Michael Easter said he wouldn't be surprised if more people are fired. Jojo, new sub, truly speechless with the amount of corruption we witnessed, starting from Boston to Norfolk, ever since the 2003 case. It's like Pandora's box. Where does it end? It may not end. Jojo, excellent observation. Thanks for being here. Pamela Bailey says, I got her hooked on another case that she hasn't followed. Here I go again. Remember when this happens, I'm here for it all. This is going to be good. Thank you, Pamela Bailey, for your very generous and kind super chat. Sandy B says, hope the judge throws this out because of bad investigation. Maybe then YURIY, Fanning, and Tully will be fired too. Maybe. A girl can dream. Roasted bean, Guarino, Italian word to guard or to protect. Well, it's a misnomer, isn't it? Ginger, Bad cops, bad DAs using cops' illegal practices. Judge bad if it allows it in. If the Justice Department or FBI doesn't do a RICO on this BS, the system has gone to hell. Sham Wow says, on the heels of the Karen Reed trial, this judge has an opportunity to make a statement on the Wild West conduct that is MSP. Yep. Do you think she will? Thanks, Julie says, I enjoyed it. A much needed break. Now back catching up. Well, there's a lot to catch up on this one. Josh wants to know, why would they need to get a warrant to re-image them if they already had the data, unless they weren't supposed to have the data that they looked at? Exactly. Why did you stop? If you didn't think you were doing anything wrong or you were outside the scope of the consent, why did you stop? Consciousness of guilt? I don't know. Thank you, Cynthia 1880, for saying it's pronounced Woobin. Thanks for your 10. And look at Film Freak gifting 5 memberships. You're awesome. This is such a great chat we have here. You guys are called the Snark Tank for a reason. KH says, oh, thank you for your 20. You are chef's kiss. Thank you for shining a light on this case to expose the corruption within MSP. It's through voices like yours that we can root out bad and push for meaningful reform. You're a true change agent. Thank you. Thanks for noticing. I appreciate that. David, I put this up before that Trooper Guarino said he contacted Tully. Oh, not Fanning? Kate, thanks for your super sticker. Fiona, thanks for becoming a new member. ShamWow from Canada. All these idiots should have to wear their assigned uniforms so the public knows who they are. With like a name tag. FKR 2024, I hate this. It was easy to defend Karen's rights because we knew she was innocent. This is twisted because I feel like we're defending Brian Walsh and I don't like it, but that doesn't justify the Commonwealth at all help. Well, we need to point out that Massachusetts does not seem to believe in constitutional rights of its citizens of Massachusetts, correct? Look at Turtle Boy. People could argue that all of the things that he did were within the First Amendment, free speech, right? And yet he's being prosecuted for witness intimidation, felony charges of witness intimidation. He's facing up to like 120 years in jail, for those of you who don't know. And we're not defending Brian Walsh, as Grace says so eloquently. We're defending our constitutional rights. Here's the other thing. Angela points out, what if she did those searches? What if the little boy who's 6 years old is telling the truth and his mom did fix his iPad around 6:30 in the morning? And what if it's a Gone Girl type situation? I don't know. I really have no idea. I came into this thinking he's 100% guilty. I remember when this happened and following it thinking he's 100% guilty. Who makes those kind of searches on his kid's iPad? But if the kid is telling the truth and he's 6 and the mom was playing with the iPad before she left to get in her cab, and he says cab, not Uber or Lyft. It doesn't look like a taxi, right? MSP got warrants for Uber and Lyft, and they said they made no pickups around that time. She's got dual citizenship with Serbia. She was having an affair. What if she wanted to leave and go start again? I don't know. I really don't know. But knowing the way these players operate, I don't know. I thought he was guilty as hell, but I just don't know. And he talks with AJ. I've spoken to him. He called me actually while like on the weekend before the verdict came in. We've spoken a couple of times. You deserve next. I'm not here for interviews and clicks and likes. I'm too old for that. I appreciate it. Thank you. My feeling was that he had a first look deal with some production company, and he does. So the production company who produced Killers of the Flower Moon is going to produce the Karen Reed. We don't know if it's going to be a film or a TV show, but they obviously had a first look deal. I'm sure that he had agreements to do interviews with certain people, and can't fault him. Look, he worked for free, as did the other attorneys. So they all deserve to get paid somehow, some way. And I appreciate that, but I'm not, it's not about interviews for me. It's about now we got to shine the light on some other BS that's going on in Massachusetts. And if Alan wants to come on, he knows he has an open invitation. He can come on anytime he wants. Sandra, thank you for your Venmo. Says NBC Boston via Poole, Massachusetts State Police. Okay, so she's telling us that this testimony of YURIY was on May 19th. Thank you. Thank you, Sandra, because we were wondering which date that was. Lynn says, thanks for all you do from Rescue Randy and I. Glad you're back. Thank you. We miss Rescue Randy. Andrea says, thanks for covering the Walsh case. Thanks, Andrea. Elaine, thanks for your very generous Venmo from earlier or yesterday. Late today watching YURIY. I think they've gotten away with this for so long that it's now routine. Hopefully with you and others, we will expose these effers. Let's keep showing up, foot on the gas. Appreciate you. Thank you, Elaine. I appreciate you. Each and every one of you, I appreciate for coming here and spending your day with me, at least a couple hours. We still have more papers to get to. Tomorrow is, I guess, the Brian Kohberger hearing. They found blood in the basement. I think that is true. But again, if they got the search warrant for the house based on information that they shouldn't have had because it was illegally obtained, all that stuff gets suppressed. And so we still have more to cover on this. Tomorrow's going to be, I was on Evil Lives Here, season 5, episode 7. Thanks, Commander Ed. That was a long time ago. I shot that years and years and years ago, but somebody said it was on TV the other day. So yeah, I played the wife of a serial killer. It was fun. We shot that episode on a horse farm in New Jersey. And I remember it was like 110 degrees in the shade. And it was so freaking hot. We were melting. But that was a really fun shoot. It was like, I don't know, 5 days long. Any word on the O'Keefe lawsuit? I've covered that. I put it in a separate playlist called the Karen Reed O'Keefe versus Reed civil case. You can go catch up on that. If you're not familiar with the papers and everything else that I covered, you can catch up on it there, but nothing that I'm aware of has happened recently. The FBI spoke with Dr. Wolf pertaining to the harassment. I didn't know anything about that. I don't know anything about that. Okay, so tomorrow is the Brian Kohberger hearing. Does anybody know what time it is? When that news broke yesterday, you guys, and you guys are breaking it in the chat, I'm like, I looked at Twitter real quick. I saw somebody posted who I know post misinformation, and I'm like, I don't know. It just seemed like it wasn't real to me. It just seemed like it wasn't real. And then last night, a lot of the parents came out and said that they're really, really mad about this plea deal, that they just got a letter about it and they're so angry about it. And I'm like, I don't know. There must be a whole lot of more evidence. I don't know. I didn't believe it. And so I just still don't know. And until he actually pleads guilty in open court and this plea deal is actually in open court, I don't know if I'm going to believe it. So I just don't know. But it's tomorrow. I have show tickets for tomorrow with one of my kids, so I'm not covering it. But I would suggest that I don't know who's covering it. Probably Andrea Burkhart will cover it. So you absolutely should go to Andrea Burkhart to watch it. Hold on. So thank you, each and every one of you, for spending your day with me. I appreciate you so much. I love you with all of my heart. If I don't see you soon, I'm going to die. So it probably won't be tomorrow, but it'll probably be Thursday. We're going to catch up with some more papers. When I hit end on this stream, it is going to send you over to Daily Dose of Donna, who is doing a Turtle Boy interview as we speak. We're going to do a cupcake invasion on Daily Dose of Donna. It's pronounced Dana. I mean, it's spelled Dana, but she pronounces it Donna. So you will have no problem finding a source of coverage tomorrow for the Kohberger hearing. I will be on Broadway, not performing, but watching a play with one of my kids, because this is going to be the summer of fun for me and my kids. We're going to love every minute. I'm sending you over to a cupcake invasion. Daily Dose of Donna is interviewing Turtle Boy right now. Do a cupcake invasion and just be cool about it. People are always like, when I send people to him, they're like, why do you have to announce where you're coming from? I don't know, because it's polite. It's polite. That's why. And I've been talking to Donna behind the scenes anyway. She posts about me a lot. Ask before you tell her cupcake invasion. Yeah, you know what to do. Just put a cupcake in the chat. I don't know. Tell Donna, because I've never rerouted people to her. And there's like 7,000 of you here. But yeah, people get mad when you do that. Turtle Boy's on tour, says Scott McGinnis. Invade cupcakes. Ready? Thank you to moderators for keeping it classy today. I love you with all of my heart. I'm going to see you real soon. Make sure you have all your notifications set and all your bells set. Acknowledge the stream on your way out. Hit the like button and acknowledge your stream on your way into Donna's house. She does a lot of pop culture and stuff. She's interviewing Turtle Boy. Ready? Cupcake invasion. Dennis the Menace says Anna's in Serbia. A lot of people think that. She's got dual citizenship. Cupcake invasion in 3, 2. I love you with all of my heart. I'm going to see you real soon. 3, 2, 1. Safe travels, cupcakes. Bye. Stay cool, stay kind, stay classy.